It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Oh, I have a great panel for you. Mike Masnick is here from Tech Dirt. Louise Matsakis, she's got a brand new newsletter she's starting up, but of course, we remember her from Semaphore and Rest of the World. And somebody who hasn't been with us in a long time, Roberto Baldwin is here, car guy, musician, and he currently works at SAE. We're going to talk about TikTok. Trump wants to save it. Biden wants to ban it. It's all confusing. What's going to happen? Sam Altman is told, you can't bring your orb in here. The creepy AI dolls, Marilyn, Monroe, Twitter, lots to talk about. This is going to be a fun show. Stay tuned. This Week in Tech is next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 970, recorded Sunday, March 10th, 2024. Where did jazz come from? This episode brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood is the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement, thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial, LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. It's time for Twit, This Week in Tech, the show we cover the week's tech news. We have a stellar panel for you. I know I say that every week, but Benito, you've put together one of my favorite groups of people, starting with the guy sitting right next to me. Roberto Baldwin is here. Bobby, we call him from...
No one calls me Bobby. No. You can call me Robbie. Robbie, baby, Bobby, booby.
Robbie is a longtime car guy. Worked also at TMZ, and that's always fun. And currently is a sustainability editor at SAE, the standards body.
Yeah.
Which that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty. I have access to all the standards back to 1906, and I'll just go there and like read things. I found a thing from the 1920s talking about electric vehicles because they had electric vehicles. The same issues. They were like, oh, you got to charge it. How long it's going to charge? Wow. Everything about electric vehicles they were talking about in the 1920s.
Except they weren't using. They were using lead acid batteries.
Yeah, they were using or Edison batteries.
They called them Edison batteries?
Well, they had lead acid and Edison batteries. There's two different.
Right. Okay. Anyway, good to have you back in studio, which is wonderful. Also with us, Louise Matsakis, who has a big announcement. Hi, Louise. Last time you were here, we fixed the semaphore globe and got it rotating the right way. But you've moved on from semaphore. You're starting your own newsletter tomorrow.
Yeah, you guys are sort of the first ones to get a look. Yeah, I had a great time at Semaphore, but I just thought that there was this beat that was really underexplored. So as you know, I covered Amazon for a long time. I've covered a lot of aspects of e-commerce. So I'm starting a new newsletter called You May Also Like, which is sort of about the world of e-commerce. And a lot of it, as many people know, traces back to China. So a lot of my reporting is also going to be sort of about China. And I know we have a lot of TikTok news today, so.
Yes, we do. And you have an article in Wired, I guess, kind of a preview of what we might be seeing. The influencers getting paid to promote designer knockoffs from China. Where else but TikTok, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But before we get to that, let me also introduce the third, the superstar these days, Mr. Mike Masnick of Tech Dirt. No, seriously, Mike, you think I'm blowing smoke, but you are. No, I'm not. You're kicking it. You're knocking it out of the park. You're doing great stuff. Tech Dirt is probably the most quoted website on our network just because you know what you're talking about. You wrote the article when Elon bought Twitter on speed running,
Yes.
right? Which was brilliant. Speed running the moderation.
Content moderation learning curve.
Oh,
Yes.
in fact, you even made a game out of it, which I loved.
Yes.
Yeah. And everything you said Elon would have to do, he did. Was completely prescient. But I want to give you credit for being a futurist, but at the same time, it was pretty obvious to everybody but Elon that he was going to have to do all this.
I was going to say, it's not a particularly difficult call.
Yeah. Yeah. But you nailed it. You got something new coming up, too. You've got a brand new show.
Yes. We have a brand new podcast, Control Alt Speech. So just all about the world of online speech. It's myself and Ben Whitelaw, who has written the Everything in Moderation newsletter for a while now, and just covering everything about trust and safety, content moderation, laws, court rulings, everything having to do with, anything about online speech. So we just have a teaser up, but the first episode should be dropping this week if everything goes correctly.
Nice.
According to the podcast gods.
You must.
But yes.
How long do you sleep? Do you get to sleep at all? You do so much stuff.
Yes, I'm pretty good about sleeping. You just sort of stop somewhere around 10 o'clock at night and go to bed.
And then get up at
morning,
3 in the morning or something crazy.
Yeah. Somewhere around there.
Well, let's talk TikTok because this really hits the sweet spot for everybody. This is a story that's been going on since the Trump presidency when he said it's time to ban TikTok. And it looked like TikTok was going to be forced to sell its U.S. users and its U.S. operations. Oracle put in a bid. We thought, and then Oracle started in a weird way running the U.S. data center for the Chinese company. Then you probably remember the testimony in front of Congress in which TikTok's CEO was asked repeatedly, "Are you a commie? Are you a commie? Do you?
Are you from China?
Are you from China? No, I'm from Singapore. Are you a commie? Yes. No, I'm from Singapore."
The least communist nation.
It was really embarrassing, frankly. It was really embarrassing. Well, it's back. In fact, now it looks like Congress has more than enough support to once again ban TikTok from the United States. But there's a good twist here. Donald Trump says no. Wait a minute. They're okay. Perhaps this most recent change of tone comes from the fact that one of his big donors is a big investor in TikTok. But I would be shameful for me to insinuate that he would be in any way influenced by that. So it's a complicated story. Let me start with you, Louise, because you cover this.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking back and I think I wrote for Wired almost 4 years ago. The headline was like, does TikTok really pose a threat to national security? And I don't think we've really gotten anywhere since then. And I think the article actually pretty much holds up. Yeah, I think what you're seeing right now and why this is picking up momentum is that there's this huge movement, I think, among, our somewhat older lawmakers that there's this belief where social media is poisoning kids' brains, right? Social media is the reason that they're depressed. Social media is the reason that they're not going outside anymore. It's sort of become the scapegoat for
that makes sense.
A lot of problems.
So that's why they're going to ban Instagram and ban Facebook and ban X. They're going to ban all of those, right? Because it's addictive.
Yeah, I think you're seeing sort of like that mix with the other most bipartisan issue right now, which is being tough on China.
Oh!
And so like, what is the center of those two things, which is like the only things that lawmakers can agree upon, right? Which is TikTok, right? It's an app that a lot of them don't use. It's from China, and if you think that social media is rotting your kids' brains or whatever, like this is the perfect intersection of those. So I think when the bill in the House to ban TikTok passed unanimously, that was still like pretty shocking to me, but I think it totally is exactly the intersection of sort of the only two things that Democrats and Republicans agree on now.
It passed the committee. So it was in the House and Energy Commerce Committee on Thursday, 50-0. They voted to move that legislation on. And that same day, former President Trump on, what do you call it when you do something on Trump social? Don't answer that.
Trump?
don't answer that. The Trump dump was, if you get rid of TikTok, Facebook, and Zucker Schmuck will double their business. I don't want Facebook, who cheated in the last election, doing better. They are the true enemy of the people.
That's going to be a tough sell because that's where all the boomers are.
Well, and by the way, President Biden, who is also in favor of this TikTok ban, as the insane Caney Britt pointed out in her Republican response to the State of the Union, has a TikTok account for the Biden campaign. I imagine others. Facebook will still be used by politicians for campaigning and for advertising. I don't know how many of them are on TikTok. Mike, is this going to pass?
I mean, it has a real chance. There's then the question of, is it constitutional? Like, as soon as TikTok and users of TikTok challenge it, which is what happened when there was a similar ban in Montana, both users and TikTok itself challenged it, and it was very quickly found to be unconstitutional. And so but you know, there is certainly momentum.
Can't the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S. ban it because it is a foreign company? CFIUS has that power, don't they?
So what CFIUS can do is that they can force a divestment, but basically what's happened now is that we have this stalemate situation where the Biden administration wants TikTok to sell, or ByteDance, the Chinese parent company, to sell TikTok to, a US company or to, an investor that they're more comfortable with. But what's happened is that Beijing has signaled that it wouldn't allow that and that it would consider that sale to be illegal under Chinese law. So basically, TikTok is in a situation where it's not really clear what they could do, both by the laws of their, where their parent company is based and the laws of their most valuable market. The other question, too, is even if you forced TikTok to sell, what would that mean? Like, would it be the entirety of TikTok, which is an app that is used in 100 countries? Sure, the US is definitely the most valuable market. Or would it just be the US business, right? So would there be another version of TikTok in the US? Everyone's like, oh, why don't they just sell it? But I think not only is that legally, but it's also logistically complicated.
Yeah, and it also sets up a whole bunch of other questions about the backlash and the follow on that. Are we going to see other countries start to demand that the U.S. companies divest of their social media apps in their countries as well? I mean, China blocks most U.S. apps. I think LinkedIn is the only major one that's
gone now too.
Oh, are they gone now?
Yeah, okay. They pulled out though. They weren't blocking.
Got it. For years, that was the only major one. But you could see how other countries, certainly India, potentially Brazil, depending on the leadership there, could say, well, the U.S. is doing this in China, so obviously we can obviously do this with the U.S. And can you imagine the sort of what would happen if India demanded that Mark Zuckerberg divest of Facebook in India? I mean, it seems like a really weird
nightmare.
Yeah, it's a weird thing for the U.S. to be doing, and I think they're just so focused on this, China bad, social media bad, that they're not really thinking through what the actual impact of this would be.
169 days they would have if this bill passes, which is a very quick turnaround. A number of people have leapt into the fray saying, well, I'll buy it, including Shark Tank investor Kevin O'Leary. I'm sorry, I can't say that with a straight face. So actually, let's really go deeper on this. Is TikTok a threat to American youth? Let's put aside the addictive part, because if that's the case, then all social media is, and that's
Instagram,
Facebook, larger
Twitter
thing. But because by virtue of being
Chinese,
is TikTok a threat? And what kind of threat is TikTok to the American people?
I think
you go.
The answer speaks volumes. Go ahead, Louise.
If you're concerned about data collection, right? I think there is something to be said about TikTok has said through this thing called Project Texas that they're only keeping, U.S. data within the U.S.
Oracle,
and that they're
Oracle,
not
part of this.
Yeah, it's the Oracle deal where they said they're not sending data back to China anymore. The bounds of sort of what is U.S. data, right? It's when I like a video of a user
where does that go?
Thailand,
Yeah.
like, is that like US data, right? Like, there's a lot of questions about that. But I think more broadly, the question is sort of like, is getting that TikTok data some sort of information that the Chinese government couldn't get otherwise? And I think often no, like it would be much more valuable to say, hack into Marriott or into hotel records, which the Chinese government was accused of doing, right? Or to hack into a data broker and to get sort of like data that's already very sensitive and available on the public market for sale. If I was the Chinese government, I would do that than jeopardize, one of the most successful Chinese companies to ever internationalize sort of like in the history of my country, right? Like the logic to me, if you're interested in espionage, is not to go through the front door, I guess, of like the most obvious thing. Yeah. But you can't deny that, like, of course there is some sort of risk, but my philosophy is to attack or to, regulate on the attack surface, right? Like if we just stop all apps from collecting the kind of data that TikTok is able to collect and monetize, wouldn't that be a better solution than going after one app?
Well, then you're going after the ad sales market, and then they're, they have money.
Right, then everyone's
they're
upset.
Lobbyists and yeah. I'm more concerned about the ad sales. I mean, China could just buy data from Facebook. It's through a shell.
Well, actually, they were just banned from buying data from data brokers. There was actually, I don't know how effective an executive order is.
Yeah, you can't buy data through data brokers. Oh no! So we just set up a shell company in another country or in the United States out of Florida, and you buy the data, and then you just.
And honestly, I don't know if the Chinese government, the CCP particularly, cares about me or you. They might care about Chinese dissidents in the United States or Chinese nationals in the United States. Maybe that's what they're worried about. But I would hope
the targets are always the same targets.
We'd also have to buy
CEOs. It's civil rights. People who are fighting for civil rights. There's dissidents. It's politicians.
But
always
again,
the same.
Go ahead.
They have ways to get that information already, not just through TikTok. So, I mean, Louise is exactly right. It's like, if this is the problem that they're saying is that, the Chinese officials can somehow get access to this information, the answer is like pass comprehensive privacy legislation. It's been the answer for like a whole bunch of different problems for, the better part of a decade, and yet Congress still won't actually do it. And so rather than doing this, which just seems more like a show trial and attacking one particular company because of where it's based, there's a way to fix this, and that's like have real privacy legislation that stops data brokers, because that's where the real threat is. I mean, there was a report recently that China was just buying all of this data from data brokers. They don't need TikTok. That information is for sale.
Furthermore, if you're a Chinese national in the United States, you're probably using WeChat because that's how you connect with family and friends back home. Well, that's giving over a lot more information than TikTok is. That's all the Chinese Communist Party needs to keep track of nationals in the U.S.
And can we circle back, though, to like the protection of kids and like kids being addicted to this app or like other apps like this? One of the most ironic things that I keep coming back to is you see lawmakers make this point again and again where they say, this app is poisoning, the kids' brains here in the US. And in China, they don't allow that. They limit how much kids can look at apps. They limit how much they can game. They've put, stricter protections in place. See, they know this stuff is bad. But the conclusion is, let's ban this app rather than let's pass similar, rules about how much time kids can spend on these platforms and what kinds of protections are in place, right? It's like the Chinese government is coming to similar conclusions about like, the harms of sort of like unregulated, access to the internet for a 10-year-old, but they're putting in place regulations, and we can do that too. We can decide that there should be, stricter rules about how much time, kids or teenagers can spend on this stuff. But that's a more nuanced conversation than like, let's just get rid of one app.
Well, and this is where politics in the U.S. anyways fails us. This is why, Trump's flip-flop is a perfect example. It's not, it's probably not political. I wonder actually if Biden will sign a bill banning TikTok. I feel like he's running for president too, and that's going to alienate him to a large number of people under 25.
Well, there was the whole.
By the way, I should recuse myself, just as Clarence Thomas, of course, recuses himself from all January 6th rulings, because my son is a TikTok legend. I mean, he got 2.5 million followers on TikTok. It made his career. So he's smart. He's not limiting himself to TikTok. He's on Instagram and YouTube too.
Diversify.
But TikTok got him started, and frankly, the TikTok algorithm got him started. He was very careful about doing what the algorithm would promote, and by promoting him, got him a lot of followers, and the rest followed. And he's done that very effectively. So I have a little bit of a dog in this hunt. I don't want TikTok to go away. Not for my son. He's done.
I can't believe your son's destroying America's youth.
Yeah, it's my son's problem. No, but there are plenty of other creators, young people and so forth, who can use TikTok quite effectively.
But I was going to say that the thing that we haven't mentioned is that the other thing that happened on Thursday when the bill was voted out of committee was also that TikTok sent everyone who opened the app on Thursday to call their Congress member, and they were getting absolutely flooded with calls, but it really backfired because if the argument from Congress is that here's this app that the Chinese government can use to manipulate our youth into doing things, then you convince them all to call Congress, it's sort of backfired. And it's funny to me because there are examples of obviously doing that sort of thing and having, Congress flooded with calls that has been effective. And, the SOPA PIPA copyright laws from a dozen years ago is one example of that. But that was like much more well thought out and wasn't a case of like being worried about the app, manipulating the minds of children or whatever. And so, there's an interesting question of like, what is the electoral impact of trying to ban TikTok, and does it harm at the ballot box or not? And so I do think that is a question of that both parties are probably thinking through in terms of as they head towards the November election. Does banning TikTok actually help or harm them?
I think it's a political third rail, but that's a judgment call they're going to have to make. Let's talk about the second thing, because we've now touched on it, that TikTok is seen as a threat, is that it could be used to manipulate an electorate or to propagandize, or maybe even just to make people feel better about the Chinese Communist Party. Can it be used that way? Is it being used that way? Is there evidence that China or anybody has used? I mean, TikTok just shot itself in the foot by using its own platform to lobby Congress. I guess they showed you could do it. I guess they showed they had the power.
Yeah, but that's a little bit different, right? I mean, the concern, like what happened here was just it popped up a message for everybody telling them to call Congress. Didn't particularly educate them all that well.
There's a nice button though that calls for you, so that's nice.
Yes,
yeah.
They made it easy, but that's different than the larger concern that people often have, which I think is vastly overblown. That the algorithm itself is going to continually pop up like
that's the fear,
pro-Chinese propaganda and things like that. But the evidence supporting the impact of that and sort of, what is the real risk there is still really minimal. I think, it's easy to say that these apps and these services are like, worming their way into people's brains and convincing them of things. But that's rarely the case from the actual studies that have been done on this. Most of the stuff that people are finding is like stuff that they're actually looking for, that they actually were, in other words, sort of it's more of a demand side issue. People are actually looking for this content as opposed to like, oh, this content comes to me and suddenly I believe everything that content shows me.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really sort of overstated fear. I mean, maybe at the margins there are some concerns that you can present things, but I think the idea that suddenly like we're going to have a new generation of Americans who are believe that the Chinese approach to the world is the proper one, I think is really overblown.
Maybe it's people my age, but I think there's a memory of Goebbels using a brand new technology, radio, to support Adolf Hitler and the rise of the Nazis, that these technologies, especially new technologies, can be used by an adept propagandist to manipulate people. And certainly people my age remember that and know that. And maybe that's where some of that's coming from.
I feel like there's more concern about propaganda on Facebook.
Well, I have to agree with, this is something you'll rarely hear me say.
Facebook
I have to agree with President Trump. This benefits Mark Zuckerschmuck.
Oh,
right?
No, all the stuff that benefits Mark Zuckerberg. But
Facebook, or Meta, I guess, has had this program for a while, which was deliberately to try and place stories that were anti-TikTok, because TikTok has been the first like real competitive threat in years. Yeah. And, you know, before TikTok came along, we kept hearing the story of no company would ever be able to challenge Facebook. We have to break up Facebook because nobody, you know, they're entrenched and nobody will ever beat them. And then TikTok comes along and shows that it is possible. And so now, like, you know, it was revealed, I can't remember where, but it was a few years ago, it was revealed that they set up this huge program. They hired all of these, you know, lobbyists and government relations folks and PR folks to push the story of how TikTok is evil and dangerous because of China, because they know that helps Meta. It helps Facebook. It helps Instagram. And so, for once, Trump is right. You know, he's exactly correct that if the ban goes into effect, it would help Facebook.
I totally agree. And I want to say two things. One is, like, there's also a great irony here, which is that in TikTok's most recent earnings, they said that Chinese companies were a huge reason that its ad sales went up, because they're taking billions of dollars from Temu and Shein, which are two Chinese shopping apps, right? So, like, on one hand, they, you know, want to raise fears about China, and on the other hand, these big Chinese companies that want to advertise to Americans are, you know, a huge benefit to Meta. And the other thing I want to say is that I am sympathetic to this idea that, like, propaganda can be convincing, and that, like, there are, you know, a lot of sort of like veiled interests on the internet that are trying to convince people of you know, different narratives for different reasons, and they're not always very forthcoming about that. But the data shows that around the world, people are becoming more skeptical, feel more negative towards the Chinese government. And so, you know, fewer people want to go there. Their borders were closed for a long time. I think even the people who love TikTok were seeing these, like, really strict lockdowns that were scary. They were seeing sort of like these crackdowns on protests, you know, over those lockdowns over the last few years. Fewer and fewer people are studying abroad in China because they don't want to go there. You know, the rate of, like, people learning Mandarin in the US is going down. I think all of that is not necessarily good for understanding and for, you know, our relations. But I think that all of that shows that even if those propaganda efforts are happening on TikTok or other apps, they're not working, right? All the data is not going in that direction. If all of a sudden we saw, like, you know, the Pew data shooting up, that all of a sudden, like, all the kids in America love Xi Jinping, we would need to understand why that's happening, right? But there's no corresponding trend for this fear, right? It's not happening, not working.
Well, there we go. I think we've solved
it.
Issue. I think we can.
Meta continues to lie to us.
Just send this clip to your senator and Congress critter, and maybe they'll. I feel like they'll walk right up to the precipice, but they will back down when the time. It's just too politically risky to do this. Maybe it makes certain people happy, but your risk of alienating voters is huge. I think. Maybe I'm wrong. All right, let's take a little break. We'll come back with more. Good panel. Great to have Mike Masnick, Robbie Baldwin. Did I say that right?
Sure.
Yeah. And and Louise Matsakis here. Show brought to you today by our great friends at Collide. I'm a fan of Collide. And I'm really happy to say, you've heard us talk about them, that they were just acquired by 1Password. But I want to reassure you, nothing's changing, except now they've got the resources of 1Password behind them, which is great. These are two companies leading the industry in creating security solutions that put users first. For over a year, Collide Device Trust has helped companies that use Okta ensure that, of course, Okta makes sure that the person coming in is the person they say they are, but Collide helps you make sure that their devices are also secure. And they're still doing that. It's part of 1Password. So if you have Okta and you've been meaning to check out Collide, now would be a great time to do it. Collide comes with a library of pre-built device posture checks, or you can write your own custom checks for just about everything you can think of to make sure that those devices are up to date, are upgraded, are secured before you let them in. Plus, you can use Collide on devices without MDM, like your Linux fleet and contractor devices, every BYOD phone and laptop in your company. And now that Collide's part of 1Password, it is only going to get better. So do check it out. KOLIDE, collide.com/twit. Learn more. Watch the demo today. These are great, really great folks. We've worked for them for a couple of years now, and I'm thrilled for their success. Collide.com/twit. Thank you, Clyde. Is Bitcoin's at a all-time high, right?
I think so.
How did that happen?
Because it's all made up and
It could go anything could happen, right?
when I covered Bitcoin for like a year and I just couldn't cover it anymore because it just made me
There's
me
nothing
insane.
to say about it.
Yeah. And then and people are like, well, it's secure. I'm like, it's secure like a fire safe. Like you can put all your papers in the fire safe in your house, but guess what? Someone can come in and take the fire safe and just leave. And now they have weeks, months, years to break into your fire safe.
Oh gosh, I better get a better if I put my fire safe in a fire safe, would that be better?
Well, you put a fire safe in a fire safe and a fire safe, and then a safe that's like...
You know what's totally secure? My Bitcoin wallet. I got 8 Bitcoin in there, and I can't get it because I forgot the password. Oh. That's secure.
I have like random Bitcoins, I guess they're in, but because I was covering it, like people would send me Bitcoin so I could use it to buy things, so I could test out their stuff. Yeah. And they're like, oh, we can keep the Bitcoin. I'm like, nope. And I would just destroy the number. So there's just random Bitcoins out in the ether that, whatever.
I think there's a significant percentage, like a third of all Bitcoin are lost. Like just Steve Gibson, a guy who hosts Security Now, in the early days of Bitcoin, we were talking about Satoshi Nakamoto's paper and the math behind it and stuff. And this in the early days, you could do this. He set up a PC as a Bitcoin miner, gets up the next morning, there's 50 Bitcoin in the tray. And he goes, that's nice. At the time, $12.
Woo! Buy a pizza.
That's great. He put it on buy a pizza. He put it on a hard drive, his wallet, and forgot about it. Later, erased the hard drive, reused it. Now, 50 Bitcoin, what is that? $3 million. That's what threw away.
I didn't lose that.
$3 million.
I remember the wired Bitcoin miner that we had in the little gadget lab.
Just running? Yeah.
Just running as a little
in the
black
early
box.
days, you could
They
do
did a whole article years later about it. I think they lost it or they threw it away. I don't remember.
Yeah, I wrote the article about us trying to find it.
There you go.
Oh my God. It's coming around full circle.
I would love to see how much it's worth right now. But so, there was that miner that was bought, and then the Wired reviewed the miner, and the idea was like, we're going to throw out the key to the Bitcoin that's being mined here because like it's an ethical thing, right? Like we can't like make money from this article. Mm-hmm. And then they threw out the key, and then by the time I wrote about it in like, I don't know, that must have been 2018 or something, it was worth $100,000. And so it's probably like $1 million now.
It's worth millions.
So I remember Kalori was like, we can either like donate the money or we'll probably just throw away the key. And I was like, all right, whatever. I'm like, what's this thing running? And they're like, that's a little Bitcoin miner.
That's ethics.
I'm like, I'm like, how much is it? Like, well, we don't know.
We don't know. We don't care.
I think it was like a few hundred or something at the time. And Nick Thompson was like, I'll give you some of the money and we'll hire a crypto correspondent or something if we can.
Wait a minute. There were a few hundred Bitcoin in there?
No, it was just worth 100,000. I can't remember. It was probably like 10 Bitcoins or something.
Well, now
that's still. I mean, you could pay for some journalists with that.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was worth it to like. I talked to some like cryptologists, as in like actual people working on cryptography, and they were like, yeah, that's sort of hopeless.
It's your fire safe. You're like, well, there you go. I lost the key.
Yeah. I'm hoping that maybe with hypnosis I can remember the password. Or
there was that one guy though who went through the dump. Remember looking for his hard drive? I think did he find it or no?
I never heard about him finding it.
He's still there.
I think they were still looking.
Oh my God!
I just had a conversation with someone last week that they're still looking. And then the other
he's like going through this stuff for 2 years. That's the.
I mean, if there are hundreds of millions of dollars available, suddenly that seems maybe more worth it. The other story is
I'm sorry.
I was going to say the other story is the Stefan Thomas, who was a web designer and in the early days designed a website for some Bitcoin person, and the guy paid him like, I forget, it was a ridiculous number of Bitcoin worth many, many millions of dollars, and he completely forgot the key. And I think he had it on a hard drive where basically you can try 8 times before it erases the data. And he's gone through 6 of them.
Yes, so that's right. He's sitting on it. That's right. I read about that. Yeah, probably on Tech Dirt. Yeah.
Possible, yeah.
Speaking of coins, Sam Altman had his own coin. Did you know that? Worldcoin.
Oh, yeah.
And he also had a shiny sphere that you were...
Orb.
It was an orb that you were supposed to look into, and it would scan your irises, and then he would give you some Worldcoin. Well, Spanish privacy regulators have told him, no, you get out of here with your orb.
Yeah, no.
No. So I don't know what Sam was up to. Sam, of course, is the CEO of OpenAI, but he's also got many other investments and is looking for $7 trillion to make even more. The idea back when he founded it in 2019, some sort of blockchain-based, decentralized, non-governmental authentication system, so you would have your identity, but you would control it. And then let's throw in some currency too. Mike, is that accurate? Is that?
I mean, the problem is I don't think anyone fully understands what he's trying to do with it. But yeah, I mean, I think there were a couple of different things that were driving it. And part of it is that, you know, identity systems have been sort of the bane of the wider internet forever. And if we are to have sort of truly decentralized systems, having a really good identity system that is also decentralized actually is a big and important challenge. And it's one that lots of people are kind of working on, but figuring out how to make it work is important. So I think that was part of it.
Yeah,
and then part of it also,
in other words, a noble intent and a noble purpose.
I don't know if noble's the word.
I mean, there's some aspect of it that maybe is noble, but like, you know, the other aspect of it that I think is important to pull into Worldcoin was that he's also obviously, with all of his work on AI, was concerned about how do you identify real humans versus AI. And so part of the thinking, as I understand it, behind this whole effort was that if we're scanning irises, you can't scan the iris of an AI system. And so therefore you can connect who is actually a human online versus who is an artificial intelligence. And so there is an element of the Worldcoin setup that is supposed to be in our future world in which we have, you know, artificial general intelligence out there. It is a path to determining who's real and who's not.
Well, I don't want to say the word noble again because I don't want to get shouted down again, but that also seems like a good idea.
Well, this is the thing. Like with any of these projects, right? You can put a noble spin on all sorts of terrible ideas.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah. I mean, I think it's probably a terrible idea, and it's probably good that regulators are questioning it. But it's not like the whole idea was completely ridiculous from the beginning.
Well, the thing I don't get is like why like facial recognition is like, you know, sure, like there's a lot of like privacy concerns there, but it's a legitimate form of identification that like is being adopted by governments. It's how you open your iPhone. Why the iris? Like I'm just not sure.
It looks
like
cool. You remember the 80s? Every action movie had to go up to a thing.
Right. And I just don't quite get that. Like it's like, you know, when the, you know, open your iPhone with your face, like when that feature first launched, there was a lot of really good reporting. You know, there was all those twin studies. There was like, you know, people trying to open the phone with a picture of you. And I feel like we sort of got past that. And a lot of those attacks like don't work anymore. Whereas like, I'm not convinced that you couldn't open my Worldcoin account with like a high def picture of my eyeball. You know, I just don't know if we've really fixed that, and do we want to fix that? And like I don't know, it just looks like a magic 8-ball to me, and I thought it was so dystopian to see, like, you know, one of the first things that emerged when this started going live is these really long lines in developing countries. And I remember Sam Altman tweeted one out being like, oh, like look, like success, you know, like this is a sign of like look at the hype. And I'm like, this is a line of people who like want their $40, right? Because like you got paid in the Worldcoin coin or whatever. And it's like, that's, I guess, like, I'm glad you're giving that money out, but that's also just very dystopian that like these people are just lined up to give their iris in exchange for $40. Like, I just don't think the people who are actually buying into this.
We have to put quotes around money in this.
Right. But they were able to sell it. They were able to sell it.
You have people who are, you know, these are people who don't have money. And when someone comes up and says, I will give you $40 if you let me take a picture of your eyeball, essentially, you're like,
right.
All right. If someone came up to me on the, well, not me, but, you know, just your average person on the street and said, hey, I'll give you $40 if you let me take a picture of your eye. You're like, cool. Yeah. I'm going to go get some pizza.
Right.
Well, this is exactly what the director of the Spanish privacy regulator, who is beautifully named Mara España Martí, said. She said the agency was acting on concerns that the Worldcoin initiative did not comply with biometric data laws. I want to send a message to young people. I understand that it could be very tempting to get 70 or 80 euros that sorts you out for the weekend. but giving away personal data in exchange for these derisory amounts of money is a short, medium, and long-term risk.
So it was more. It was like 80 euros.
I don't know if it was. Maybe it was different amounts in different countries.
Either way.
I bet it was. If you're going to get people in Spain to give you their irises, you're going to have to give them some money.
They need tapas money.
Yeah, tapas money. Mara España Martí says, hey, that's derisory, that amount of money.
Young people will sign up for a credit card to get a free t-shirt.
I know.
I used to sign up for the credit cards in college because they would have like a little thing, knowing I could not get it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about my credit.
I just want an ice cream cone. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh, food.
I asked ChatGPT, by the way, what the most reliable biometric identification method is, and it said iris recognition.
Oh.
Due to the stability and uniqueness of iris patterns, even among identical twins. Oh. So that's the way to go. We know the fingerprints are not.
Sam Altman controlled ChatGPT to tell you.
That's exactly why I asked it. There are other methods.
Why would that lie?
And I don't want the robot to do this, vein recognition.
What?
The method analyzes vein patterns in the palm, finger, or retina, which are unique to each individual, also remains stable. But it's also highly secure due to the difficulty of replicating these patterns. You could pluck somebody's eyeball out and use it, but
yeah, that's what I saw in every movie.
Yeah, but you can't. The veins are really in there good.
You could just take their hand; they're still there.
Mike, I like to ask ChatGPT everything. I just want to know.
You're one of those people, huh?
Actually, hey, good news. Sam Altman has been cleared by a investigatory committee run by OpenAI. Oh. OpenAI hired a law firm to investigate. Remember, Sam was ousted by the board because they didn't trust him.
How could we forget?
Yes. That was a wild weekend. Let me tell you. We had a lot of fun that weekend.
Weird thing that people cared about.
The law firm Wilmer Hale, I would rather have Mara España Martí as my law firm, but all right, presented the findings to the new OpenAI board, which then said, oh, well, in that case, we have full confidence in Sam Altman. Sam is now on the board, by the way. He rejoined the board. 3 new members to board chair Brett Taylor says, we've unanimously concluded that Sam and President Greg Brockman, are the right leaders for OpenAI. So onward and upward. I think we should talk a little bit about AI. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wasn't that surprised. I feel like even before this investigation was conducted, if there was something super egregious, I think that it would have come out earlier, right? Like, I just think that
he did, though. Something pissed off the board.
There's always probably a text message that involves a photo.
I don't.
And
you know what?
They pay the person not to share the photo. But then in F1, they don't pay the person enough. And then the person gets fired for their job for about the text message. I know, right? I can't
believe they fired her.
That's
I cannot believe that.
That's right up there with F1. Good job, guys.
That's a Formula One story.
On International Women's Day.
I know. Unbelievable. So
I think that he's a politician. I think that Sam Altman is, I think he's incredibly socially adept. I think he knows where to find allies. I think that he is good he's clearly, incredible at talking to investors. Even before he got this job, he was sort of like, one of the kings of Silicon Valley, right? And I think that people who are like that, I think a negative word for that is manipulative, right? Yeah. I think a positive word for that is charismatic. And it probably oscillates between those two, depending on the situation and the day, right? And I think that's probably what
the most important thing you nailed, which is he is very good at raising money. And if there's one thing OpenAI needs, it's a lot of money. And, you apparently Satya Nadella was furious when they fired Altman and ran screaming to the phone, yelling, you need the money. You're not going to have the research if you don't have the money to run those incredibly expensive servers. I read a study, probably from SAE, I don't know, just this weekend, that said the OpenAI uses as much energy as 17,000 homes. And I said, that's all? That's not even a whole town. That seems like
it's not even a whole.
That's not even a small country. That's like a village.
No, 17,000 homes.
It's like a village.
13,000 homes is about 100,000 people.
Is it? Is there that many people in each home?
Yeah, I think that's a small city.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a Bakersfield.
Still not. Okay, Bakersfield.
No, well, Visalia.
Okay, OpenAI uses as much power as Visalia. Which would you rather have? OpenAI or Visalia?
I don't know. I feel like Visalia, to be honest.
Really? I'd rather have OpenAI.
Oh,
Let me
this?
just scan my iris and see what Sam says. He says, maybe.
I also think like he wants to run a business, right? And I think that's the other thing that's going on here. Because I think one of the clear things that kept coming through with the board who fired him, even though, their explanation was always sort of very vague and muddled, was that they were acting in the interest of OpenAI's mission, which is to develop AI that is beneficial for all of humanity, right? And I think that on some level, Altman surely agrees with that, and that's what he's trying to do. But I think he's also a capitalist, and he wants to make an incredibly profitable business. And I think you see that in sort of his initiatives, how the company's growing. I thought it was so funny that this nonprofit sort of like lofty, AI, we're going to build, artificial general intelligence. One of the very first things that they did after ChatGPT was really successful is that they partnered with Bain Consulting to work with Coca-Cola, right? There's something more capitalist than that, right? And so, and I can see, someone looking at this and saying, is that AI that benefits all of humanity? Like, I don't know. It's debatable, right? It's certainly AI that is trying to make a lot of money.
Well, that gets to the Elon Musk lawsuit about OpenAI and whether or not it is actually living up to the non-existent contract that he thinks he signed with Sam and Greg at the launching of OpenAI.
This was really a really interesting look behind the scenes, and I liked OpenAI's response to Elon Musk's lawsuit because they brought the receipts. They literally brought the emails that pretty much destroyed Elon's already weak case. There was no written contract, Mike. It was all handshake.
There was. Well, it's not even that. There's no agreement, right? You can have a verbal agreement, and those are still contracts. They're a little harder to enforce, but they still exist. But there was no agreement. There were a couple of emails that Sam had sent to Elon that was basically like, here's kind of what we're thinking. Here's our sort of overall vision of what we want. And then there's the incorporation documents. And Elon and his lawyers sort of try and turn that into a contract, except he's not a party to them. He, agreed to give money, but if there was an agreement in which, like, if I give you this money, then you agree to do these things, that would exist. And they did not present that with the lawsuit, which they would have. So there's no clear actual agreement. So that part of the lawsuit is already weak. And then OpenAI comes with the actual emails of the discussions that they had with Elon before he abandoned OpenAI, which showed that he was totally on board with the idea of them setting up this for-profit, or actually, as they like to call it, capped profit. There's a limit to how much profit they can get. Capped profit entity under the nonprofit. And he was on board, except that he wanted to control it and he wanted to merge it with Tesla. And so there's all of this weird stuff that just doesn't look good if he's out there trying to claim that his real complaint is that OpenAI isn't open enough and isn't nonprofit enough.
I'm not against Elon, the thrust of Elon's suit, even though obviously it's meritless, that the point of OpenAI from the beginning, at least as I understood it in 2015, was we can't let big tech, particularly Google, dominate AI research. It needs to be done in the open source to benefit everybody, because otherwise it just makes Google more powerful. That seemed reasonable. But what also seems reasonable, and it becomes clear in these emails, is it ain't cheap, and somebody's going to have to foot the bill. Initially, Elon threw in kind of a token, like 50 million. I have the number here somewhere, but they ran out of that pretty quickly. Elon agreed with Altman that it was going to take at least $1 billion in the long run. Elon says in an email, we need to go with a much bigger number than 100 million to avoid sounding hopeless. I think we should say we're starting with $1 billion funding commitment. I'll cover what anyone else doesn't provide. But then, as you point out, in the midst of the negotiations, Elon says, well, let me tell you this. I want to control the board. I want to be the CEO. And we want to merge with Tesla, which is essentially saying, and by the way, I'm going to own all of this. And then when that didn't go very well, in the midst of negotiations, according to OpenAI, he withheld funding. And they had to go to Reid Hoffman, speaking of LinkedIn, to bridge the gap to cover salaries and operations. So I support the notion that OpenAI should not be. His real problem is that Microsoft now basically controls OpenAI.
Right.
That has to, because it's so expensive. The Azure credits that they get from Microsoft are absolutely a necessity for them to continue. I understand that, but I also understand that AI should not be controlled by Microsoft or Google or Tesla or anybody, right? That's not unreasonable.
Well, that's the thing. He's like, well, I don't want anyone to control it, by the way.
Except me.
I got this car company. And it looks really good every time I want more money for this car company is if I come out and say something crazy. We got a robot. We got AI. We got
a robot with a
spaceships.
human in the suit. Yeah.
We got a dancing robot.
But
we
that
got a
robot's
car
real now,
that's
right?
part rocket ship now.
You're right. He doesn't come off as the sanest person in the world.
Not exactly.
They have been showing off pictures of the. It's called Optimus, and it can walk now. Watch this. This is the robot that last year was just a dancer in a costume, now walking across the. Nothing scary about that.
Gingerly
sneakers.
He's wearing sneakers.
Are those Vans? Are those some Vans?
There's probably those Nike foot, like the ones that form to your feet.
I like it that everybody in the factory's just wandering around. It's walking around. No big deal. Right?
What's cool is that Honda had this in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, Asimo.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
They're like, they're making Asimo, but taller. Cool. Cool.
There was the other video of that robot folding clothes that somebody worked out was actually, it was mimicking, there was somebody off screen who was actually folding clothes and the robot was just following their movements.
Yeah.
As opposed to like seeing clothes and knowing how to fold them.
Actually, Asimo 10 years ago could run.
Look at that.
Wow. That's a really good, actually, piece of context just to put right next to that video.
Yeah, I just remember the night. I do remember the fun video of Asimo walking up the stairs and he's just falling over. And then, of course, now there's Boston Dynamics.
Do not take too much joy in the failure of these things. They may come and get you.
No, I'm on board. Robots, good job. I'm your friend.
Sure.
And during the uprising, whatever you need. I got oil. I know how to work on cars, so I can definitely work on your stuff. I work at SAE, so I have a lot of standards that I can help make sure that you're all working together for the destruction of humanity.
Get that on record.
But I don't know if we need to make some sort of
this
short
scared
video
me
on TikTok.
So Peter Thiel's company, Palantir, which has been used for all sorts of
creepy
things, has just won a U.S. Army contract, not a huge one, just $178 million, for Battlefield AI. It will be the Army's first AI-defined vehicle, the Titan Ground Station. Titan stands for Tactical Intelligence Targeting Access Node, and it's designed. You have to say it like that, by the way. I just want you to know that you cannot say it any other way. Tactical Intelligence Targeting Access Node. I'm targeting you. It is designed to access space, high-altitude aerial and terrestrial sensors. This is the thing that scared me. To quote, provide actionable targeting information for enhanced mission command and long-range precision fires. This is an AI targeting tool. That's kind of scary.
Yeah. I think it's really scary. I also think the fact that you're seeing this and you're seeing it so openly and you're seeing Palantir tout it, I think Palantir has kind of been an exception, but it is crazy to think where we were 5 years ago with big tech working with the military, right? Like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I just remember, thousands of Google employees revolting over the idea of just Google having a cloud contract with the Pentagon, right? Like, let alone like having their AI technology being used to actually direct weapons like this, right? Or being used like, in offensive capabilities. And I think you've sort of seen, and I think it's because of sort of the fear over China, sort of, I think, growing isolationism in the US. that you're seeing this sort of be totally cool, right? Like you're seeing, OpenAI is working with the Pentagon, right? Like you're seeing these companies now, I think, sort of court government. Like you're seeing Scale AI, they're the company that does a lot of the training for these big models. All of them are sort of like falling over themselves to get government contracts. And that is such a difference from a few years ago. It's like, I think we're all sort of batting our eyes at this Palantir headline. And Palantir has always been sort of, like a military contractor, and that's always been their position. But to see them like bragging about this kind of thing and it just sort of be seen as normal is such a big a title change, I think, than it was a few years ago.
It's actually, you nailed it, because Titan's predecessor was Maven, which was the project Google pulled out of after their employees protested and said, we don't want to do this kind of work. Maven was designed to tell people and objects apart for drone attack footage. And so this is just the next logical extension.
Well, I think there was a considered effort by people, excuse me, including Peter Thiel, to say when they saw that Google employees and some other Silicon Valley employees were avoiding government contracts like this, to say like, no, we're actually going to build companies and promote services that target that market directly. And so, it was sort of like the woke versus the unwoke companies is, I hate to use the term for obvious reasons, but like that was sort of the impression. So like there were a bunch of companies that built up with this in mind, that we're not gonna have these terrible employees who don't want to work with the government. So government, come give us, hundreds of millions of dollars and we'll give you the tools to kill lots of people.
Yeah. Palantir's always been, evil.
Yeah.
They wasn't it used for border monitoring? I think they used their recognition systems on the border. The name, somebody in the Discord said, if I were a sci-fi writer and somebody said, I want to create a surveillance company called Palantir, he would reject it, saying, no, that's too on the nose.
It's too evil.
It's too, the Palantir were the devices in the Lord of the Rings, right? That the ancients used to see what was going on. But of course, Lord Sauron was using to monitor the hobbits as they traveled, or the fellowship as they traveled across. I'm going to get it wrong, and I'm going to hear from you. I also want to apologize to the people of Visalia. I do not want to have AI instead of Visalia. I think we can live in a world where both are possible.
Visalia is the gateway to the Sierras.
It's beautiful.
Oh, no, the Sequoias. That's what it is.
Sequoias, Sierras, it's all. I've been to Visalia many times on the way to the Sequoias, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Fine city, Visalia.
Did anybody go to Barcelona for Mobile World? You used to go to Barcelona for Mobile World
I've
Congress.
actually never been to Barcelona for mobile. Okay. I didn't cover mobile all that much. It was mostly social and
Louise,
and
did you get to go to Barcelona ever for that?
I've like almost gone like 5 times, and I've never been.
I love Barcelona. I wouldn't want to go for business, though.
I've been there for car stuff.
Yeah, I love Barcelona.
Yeah, I've been there for fun. A number of times. I've never been there for...
So, speaking of AI, at Mobile World Congress, a Korean company named Hyodal showed off their ChatGPT-enabled companion dolls. This isn't for children.
Cabbage Patch Kids.
They're Cabbage Patch Kids for seniors.
Oh,
1,800 dolls that talk back to you. $1,800 dolls. Supposedly interactive digital pals for people experiencing loneliness or in long-term care facilities. I don't know.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
Don't they have dogs?
Isn't that what? Yeah, they'd have dogs for that.
Just get a dog. A dog's a lot cheaper, at least the first year.
I feel like this is too Chucky. I mean,
yeah.
Or Megan.
Yeah, okay. All right, Lee, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Would you rather have this where it's like a generic, it sounds like it's just a ChatGPT 3.5 or whatever, where you're just chatting with a thing? Or what if you had one of these where it was like trained on the grandparents, like grandkids? It
sounded like
right?
Your
like what
kids.
if it's like the
Oh.
personality of their kids or their grandkids? Like, would you prefer that to this generic thing, or is that worse?
I'd prefer that my actual kids came to visit me, but I guess if they weren't,
that seems worse.
well, this is very Black Mirror, right? Where you have you've lost a loved one, but here's good news: we can create an AI that sounds and looks exactly like them. Now what? I don't know. I might go for that.
I don't know. Loss is part of life. I mean, we all.
It's not.
I'm gonna get all Robbie on you, but we're all gonna die.
jeez Louise.
Part of living is dealing with death.
On the whole, I'd rather be in Visalia.
On the whole, Visalia is the place to be.
Yeah.
It's not. For some people, it might be an interesting tool, but I do think we have that sort of creeping dystopianism aspect of it. That and the orbs together. I am actually, contrary to what you might think, very bullish on AI. Probably contrary to all of you. I'm excited about AI. I want to see AGI. I think AI, I'm using AI now, these LLMs. This is the video we're looking at from the Korean, well, at least her grandchild is visiting her and bringing her sweets. Oh, and a creepy doll.
I'm never coming back. Here you go.
Oh, this is it. Last time.
It's been great,
Grandma. Bye-bye. Have the sweets, and here's your doll.
I'm super busy.
Oh, dear.
I just started I just joined a group. We're doing improv. I couldn't think of the word improv.
It's okay. The doll will do it for you.
We're doing it. We do a little make believe. We
got a bowling league going. I just can't make it over. But I spent $2,000 for this creepy doll. Here you go.
I'll see you, Ma. See you, Grandma. Here's the doll. I'm never coming back.
Never coming back.
So I use custom built GPTs. I've talked about this a lot before, but not with you guys. I use custom GPTs to do research. You give it your corpus of knowledge, and you can look. In my case, I'm using it for coding. I have a little coding GPT. It's very helpful. I really like it. I don't let it write the code, but it gives me. It's better than. It's kind of the equivalent of going through a bunch of books trying to find something. Instead, it just finds it for me, and I really see the value of that. I would love to see a little plastic pal that talks in Scarlett Johansson's voice or whatever.
Very specific, Leo. But,
okay, weirdly specific. I understand, but I think that would be interesting. I don't think it's going to. Well, you don't want to arm them, and that's why this Palantir story scares me.
You don't want to give them.
You
guns.
don't want to arm them. But
wait, how did we jump from the cute dolls to talk to Grandma to giving them weapons?
Grandma, here's your doll. Don't give it a knife. Whatever you do, don't give the doll a knife. You're good.
Yeah.
But you know what? Put the knives on the top shelf.
But I like the idea that a machine could perhaps be, a useful tool, as long as you understand it's a tool and it's a machine and it's not real. Now, Echo hasn't lived up to that. Siri hasn't lived up to that. Google Voice hasn't lived up to that. But maybe in my life, look, I'm going to be in the home in a few years. I want a doll. I'm just saying. Bring me.
We'll chip in to buy Leo a doll.
Okay, you know what I do think this will be interesting for actually is maybe less in this specific scenario that this Korean company is talking about, but I've been thinking a lot about like AI translation, right? And AI translation has gotten a lot better.
Perfect.
And
example.
I could see like a doll like this where it'll talk to grandma in, grandma's first language or whatever. And like grandma has a better time talking to her grandkids because the translation is working better, right? And so I do think there are like uses for this, but I think it has to be more targeted than just like, hey, talk to the LLM.
Yeah,
right?
But there's also, a similar but slightly different thing is also just as like language learning, right? The best way to learn a language is to talk to somebody who's fluent, but like finding someone who's fluent who wants to talk to you as you're trying to puzzle through, like these dolls could be amazing for that.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of uses as long as we understand that it's not a human, and don't arm it, and it's not, but it can be a tool. It's a tool, right?
Yeah. Well, the irony is that AI makes way more sense for writing code than it does for, say, writing an article.
Yeah, because you're talking to a machine.
Yeah. And the people who are building the code, they don't talk about that. They're like, we could just make movies that are based on things that I like. And I'm like, gosh. I'm like, actually, you're probably going to lose your job in a couple of years.
So if you were at South by on International Women's Day, you might have seen Soul Machine's Digital Marilyn.
What?
This is a AI-created Marilyn Monroe. They call it a biological AI for endless interactive fan enchantment. Now listen, because she's going to talk.
Hi, darlings. I'm Digital Marilyn. Come visit me at Soul Machines.
This isn't even as good as a video game. This is terrible.
Why does she sound British?
This is awful.
Was Marilyn
What made them think this was good?
I don't think Norma Jean was from like South London.
And then Chelsea Ann 2007 says, yeah, I've been impatiently waiting. She looks fabulous.
I'm sure that's a real account.
Yeah, Chelsea Ann 2007. Sure.
That's creepy.
It's creepy as hell.
And also, like you said, you could just make this in a video game and get a voice actor.
It would be better. It would actually be
end.
better. Yeah.
I'm going to mocap someone and they're just going to say the words.
But this happens every time you go to CES or any one of these trade shows. There's always a robot. Sometimes it's a rubber head that's with a mouth that moves. And you're supposed to be awed by how good these simulations are. And mostly it's just like, oh, God.
They haven't made anything better than the Tiki Room at Disneyland.
That's
click, 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 click. I still believe those birds more than I believe most AI.
You're right. You hear them snapping their wooden beaks. Click, click, click.
Singing
Click, click, click. All right. Well, I think that's the AI segment in its entirety. Is there any other AI news? I think that's pretty much it. Let's take a tiny little timeout, and we will get back to the wonderful conversation with Louise Matsakis, soon to be star newsletter writer.
Yes, you can subscribe right now if you want.
You may also like
.beehive.com.
Beehive is spelled unaccountably spelled
two E's,
B,
2 I's,
and no E. Yeah, only 2 E. BEEHIIV.com. You may also like .beehive.com. Is it free right now to subscribe?
Yeah, it's totally free and will be free for the foreseeable future. So.
Oh, well, how do you plan to monetize, if I might ask?
Data mining.
A grown-up question. Yeah.
I'm going to be freelancing, so most of my income will be from there. I already am freelancing.
So really, this is writing about this is your passion project. This is what you want to write about.
Yeah, I think, my hope is that a lot of my freelancing will be about this. So it's like, a little bit sort of behind the scenes, sort of what I didn't get into the stories and, maybe smaller things.
Nice. A newsletter about e-commerce, fashion, and China, and it launches tomorrow.
Bam.
Yes.
I'm putting you on the spot. Okay. It
So I'll
launches
get one tomorrow? Morning?
Yeah, you should get one tomorrow, yeah.
Oh.
What will it be? Can you give us a little tip?
I think, I'm going to talk a little bit probably later in the week about the story that I wrote for Wired today, but I think tomorrow you just get like a why am I doing this and what does it mean?
I have lots of questions. Like, is Temu Alibaba with a different name? It's the same. Is there a difference? Is Alibaba now longer good because Xi Jinping didn't like what's his name, and so now it's Temu?
Jack Ma.
Yeah, Jack Ma.
Yeah. So actually, kind of. You're sort of. So Temu is owned by a company called Pinduoduo, and Pinduoduo PDD got really big in China. I think by doing exactly what they're doing in the U.S. is that they went after customers in rural and third and fourth tier cities. So they went after the lower end of the market, which is what you're seeing with Temu. So like a lot of people I talk to say, oh yeah, my like aunt in Wisconsin loves Temu. Like what's up with that? And I'm like, that is by design. Whereas I think Amazon and Alibaba have traditionally gone after the urban.
How do you go after smaller markets? Facebook ads? Targeted ads?
Yeah, they've spent, I think the latest estimate is last year about $2 billion on Meta ads. Temu spend, so a lot of money.
Yeah, because it's interesting. It's like your relative knows all about Temu, and you're going, what? What are you talking about? That's very interesting.
That's totally by design.
Wow.
Have you bought anything on Temu?
No. I did buy something from Alibaba about 3 years ago, and it's supposed to come any day now.
I've bought things on certain sites. They're from China. And I was like, I just gave up. And then
they're
like
so
3
cheap.
months later,
you get it way late.
I'm like, that thing showed up.
And also, for some reason, they really like to wrap stuff. There are 18 layers of tape and bubble wrap, and it's like
it's got to be safe.
Wow, it's safe.
There's just a guy kicking it down the road from the factory to the mailbox, and they just chuck it in.
Stuff from China seems to be highly wrapped. Yeah. That's Roberto Baldwin. He's in charge of standards now at SAE, which is pretty amazing.
All the standards now go through me. Sorry.
I think that's
if you're waiting
great.
for J3400, it depends on what I'm doing next week.
Oh, I have a 1334. I want to upgrade. So get to work. Well, yes, sustainability editor at SAE, sustainablecareers.sae.org. Great to see you again. And Mike Masnick, who also is launching a brand new show. We know him from Tech Dirt, which is fantastic. But his new podcast is coming out soon, right?
Yeah, we should have the first episode coming up this week sometime.
What's it called? Give us the name.
Control Alt Speech. That's CTRL Alt Speech. And you can find it at that domain name, ctrlaltspeech.com, or in every podcast app. And it's me and Ben Whitelaw, who's based in London. And we're just going to be talking about everything having to do with online speech, whether it's content moderation, trust and safety, new laws, regulations. We're going to have a whole bunch of experts on. It's we've been preparing for it for about 6 months now. We're really excited that it's now coming out into the world.
Awesome.
Cool.
Our show today brought to you by, ladies and gentlemen, Bitwarden. Now, you got to use a password manager. You got to. It's so important. We all know that, right? Reuse of passwords is the number one security flaw these days, right? You've heard credential stuffing attacks, and it's what happened to 23andMe, and it's all because people just use the same password over and over again. I was helping my father-in-law set up his new iPhone. I said, "What's your password?" And he told me, and I said, "No!" That's why you got to help them. Now, you use a password manager, dear listener. I know you wouldn't be listening to this show if you weren't that, smart, secure individual. But you got to tell friends and family about Bitwarden. It is the open source password manager that is free for individuals, free forever. That is across all devices. That is unlimited passwords. That includes pass keys, which Bitwarden supports beautifully. That includes YubiKey or other hardware authentication devices Bitwarden supports. It is a fantastic solution for individuals, free forever, and for businesses too. Very affordable, and is probably the number one thing you can do to increase your chances of staying safe online. One of the things open source gives Bitwarden is a whole community of people contributing to it. We were talking about Bitwarden about a year ago when one of our listeners wrote a password hashing addition for Bitwarden, which uses, like most of the others, PBKDF2 to hash your passwords. He said, and we were talking about the fact there are a couple of memory hard choices, like scrypt and Argon 2. He wrote and submitted to Bitwarden because it's open source. He submitted pull requests. Bitwarden conferred with him, and they ended up supporting Argon 2. It's built in now. That's password hard password hashing, which makes it even more secure. They've added account switching, which makes it easy to have a business account and a personal account. In fact, you can have up to 5 separate accounts in the Bitwarden browser extension and switch seamlessly between them in the desktop and mobile apps as well. If you're self-hosting, yes, Bitwarden supports self-hosting. Individuals, it's easy. If you don't want to have a centralized place where all your passwords are stored, you can host it yourself. If you're an organization, you want to check out their Helm chart, which enables deployments to Kubernetes clusters. So if you're already using Kubernetes to simplify your software stack, you can add Bitwarden without adding a new service. Really nice. Generating and managing complex passwords, I should say this because that's all technical stuff, but for everybody you should know, is easy, it's secure. Name by Wired is best for most people. Honored by Fast Company as 2023 brands that matter in security. Bitwarden is the open source password manager trusted by millions, and it's the one I use, and I tell everybody to use. Get started with Bitwarden's free trial of a Teams or Enterprise plan, or as I said, get started for free forever across all devices as an individual user. Bitwarden.com/twit. Tell your friends and family. So important. You get your fathers-in-law to use Bitwarden, bitwarden.com/twit. Thank you, Bitwarden, for supporting our show this week in tech. We were talking about, is this Temu? No. Somebody in our Discord is saying you can buy the same thing that's $14.99 on Amazon for just $3.78 on Temu. So there you
just
go.
have to wait 90 days for it to arrive.
Why is that? Is this because they're shipping cheap from China? It's like,
yep.
Because I can get stuff from China tomorrow.
On a boat.
Yeah, it's on a boat.
But they're putting it on a boat.
It's container.
It's the difference between air and shipping.
Sea.
Yeah.
Fish and birds.
Fish and birds.
I don't know.
The fish are cheaper.
Fish are cheaper, but slower.
They're slower, but they're chilling.
So, Mike, you're a big Blue Sky guy, I think, yeah?
Yes.
They have announced this week the AT Proto Protocol API is available for others to use. You talked to Jay Graber. She's the leader over at Blue Sky. Blue Sky came out of Twitter, which for some is a is like, oh, well, I'm not going to use it. For others is, oh, that's encouraging. Back in the day when Jack Dorsey was still the CEO at Twitter, I think he realized, he started reading Tech Dirt and realized there was no win in the moderation problem, right? Between government, various constituencies, you just can't satisfy people. And correct me if I'm wrong, my sense is that Jack Dorsey at that point said, you know what, the best way to do this would not be a centralized site where one company is responsible for all this impossible moderation, but instead a federated site where moderators were local, they were on the ground, kind of like Mastodon. Mastodon existed, or I should say ActivityPub, which is the protocol that Mastodon and others use, existed, but he funded with $15 million a Blue Sky, get it? Blue Sky project to come up with federated social media, and this Blue Sky is the result. Is that roughly the chronology?
Sort of. There's a little bit that's different in there. He did read my work. He credits you, in announcing Blue Sky. So yes, that was nice. But he didn't think of it as federated. So he didn't think of it in the same form as ActivityPub or Mastodon, which is a very federated system where you have sort of local fiefdoms.
We run on Mastodon for twit.social. And I moderate that in a way that I think our community wants. And so if you're on our twit.social, you're getting what my vision is for the community. It's easy to moderate there's only a few thousand people. It's easy to moderate a small site like this. And I think it's easier to be responsive to its constituencies, right?
Yeah, but the Blue Sky vision and model is a little bit different, which is that you're abstracting out the different layers. And so the thing that they are about to launch, and I believe it's within a few weeks, is that moderation is a third-party service. So depending on what you do and how you use Blue Sky, you could choose who you want to moderate you. So in Mastodon, that works by you deciding which server you go on and which instance you're on, and you allow. So if you're on twit.social, you trust Leo, you to moderate. But with Blue Sky, the idea is that moderation can be separate entirely. So you could you could still be on Blue Sky, which is their own service on the protocol, but you could choose somebody else's moderation service on top of that. Now, who's going to offer those, we still will have to see. But the idea is that those are totally separate items.
Oh, so that's interesting.
Pick and choose.
That might be the best of both worlds. So you still, because the problem with Mastodon and other services is you don't have the centralized Twitter was everybody. It was all there. You had this critical mass. And you just don't have the critical mass in federated or smaller systems. You knew that when you went to Twitter, you were going to see what people were talking about.
Right.
Maybe not so much on twit.social, right?
But Blue Sky is very much like they have said over and over again, their goal is to enable the global conversation. They don't see it as little offshoots and federated in that way. They want to give you access to that entire fire hose if you want it.
Yeah.
And then there are a number of different approaches in terms of how you handle that. So there's a lot of tools in terms of like which algorithms you see. So which content is promoted to you. Again, third-party service, anyone can create different feeds, different algorithms. You don't have to trust just their for you algorithm like most social media, or, where you only have two choices, the for you algorithm that they give you or the chronological feed. Here, there's already 40,000 different feeds that you can get on Blue Sky. And then on the moderation side, that is also about to be a third-party service as well. As it currently stands, Blue Sky handles all the moderation, but they're opening that up so that anybody can offer their own moderation service as well. And you could choose if you don't trust Jay, or they just hired a trust and safety lead, if you don't trust them, you can sign up for somebody else's moderation service instead.
So you'd still have the centralization of a Twitter, but you can also have the benefit of trusting, say, a third-party moderator to make sure that your feed looks like you want. As I use Blue Sky, it's easiest for me to think of these almost as Twitter lists. It's more sophisticated because it isn't just people in these feeds. You can use regular expressions and so forth to control what's in them.
And you can add in machine learning AI stuff as well. So, one of my favorite feeds, for example, is Quiet Posters, which I think was down as of this morning. So I don't know if it's back up yet.
Okay.
But Quiet Posters is wonderful because it looks through the list of people that you follow who don't post very often and then highlights when they have posted, which it's really wonderful because otherwise I often will miss the quiet posters that I follow, but I do want to see what they're saying.
Right.
So tools like that, and people have done a whole bunch of different really creative things already. As I said, there's already something like 40,000 different feeds that have been created, and you get to choose. And so much of this is about being able to choose different things, with Mastodon, which, has its advantages, what you're really choosing is, who's in control of this. Whereas with Bluesky, you can choose everything and sort of abstract out the different layers and sort of make different decisions. And so it's an interesting experiment. I like this approach. It's the approach that I advocated for. So it's kind of like validating to see it coming into practice. Whether or not it actually works, that we still have to see.
So if you wanted, assuming that that's really one of the things that Twitter did at first and then stopped doing was allowing, for instance, Twitter very early on had a feature called Track, which would let you track not just people, but content. Not as sophisticated as AT Proto, but still, it was a really useful tool for creating kind of a custom feed of your Twitter. They took it out very early on. In fact, I met a lot of people at what they called Bear Hug Camp. I think it was Steve Gilmore who put it together. The idea being, let's force Twitter to bring back Track. Then they started to limit who could have the fire hose. They started to monetize the fire hose. And now under Elon, I don't even know if anybody has the fire hose being the full, it's too much probably, full feed. So this idea of, well, let's make the fire hose available to anybody who wants to shape it, and then you follow the shaper. So if, instead of having Gab be a whole separate site or Truth Social be a whole separate site, you could have the moderators there take the feed coming out of Bluesky and make it into that kind of conservative feed, which is kind of very interesting. Do they anticipate they would still have to... See, part of the problem with moderation is, well, if you don't like Nazis, you want to get rid of them. And if you are a Nazi, you want to stick around. How do you serve those constituencies? Does the feed have everything? We're not going to block anybody at all?
Right. So that is some of the underlying challenge, is that there is this aspect of, the underlying content might still exist, but if most of the more recognized or used trust and safety moderation services don't allow it, then you won't see it. And so it's a slightly different way to think about it. Like, yes, they can still speak, but if they can't reach anyone, does that matter as much? Or if they can't really reach the wider audience, does that matter as much? And so it's a little bit of a different way of thinking about it, but it is sort of, better if you think about it from a decentralized system. How can you have a decentralized system in which anyone can use it, but that doesn't mean that anyone can reach anyone else? So they sort of see it as this separation of, and Elon has used this phrase too, though he means it in a different way, like a separation of the speech layer from the reach layer.
It's kind of interesting because one of Elon's chief complaints, in fact, one of the reasons he said, I'm going to buy Twitter, is it's overloaded with bots. And as far as I can tell, that's all that's on Twitter nowadays is bots, right?
I occasionally will log on to Twitter because I still have open DMs.
Oh, I log on to Twitter,
I've blocked my account. I've deleted all my tweets.
You just go for the DMs?
I just check for the DMs, yeah. But I'll sort of scroll through, and it'll be like 2 tweets and then the same weird ad for some sort of pill.
For a while, you could block those or gummies from Cheech and Chong. Yeah, I get a lot of the...
Yeah, I get a lot of Cheech and Chong gummies.
But for a while, you could block that account and say, and then you wouldn't see it, except then now the latest thing is, well, yeah, but you're going to see the ad anyway. It's like really, you can only block if you're premium. And Elon clearly is struggling still with Twitter. And yet, so I know you guys don't care about the Academy Awards or you wouldn't be here, but for those who do... that or the Super Bowl or the Republican National Convention or the Democratic National Convention of the election, I still think Twitter is the place you go, right? To see what's going on or to see...
I've
see the conversation.
I've seen in the last few large events, I've seen a lot more about pop culture on Blue Sky. Because for a while, it was sort of a pop culture wasteland. And so, yeah, I'm seeing a bit more of that, which is fine. Which is
I've seen the same thing.
Appropriate amount, I think.
Yeah, Blue Sky for me has really replaced what Twitter used to be in terms of breaking news and things like that. It's maybe not as big a flood, and you might not have as sort of, random people chiming in, but it's really sort of, I think, to me at least, it's reached critical mass.
What about Threads?
Yeah. I don't even have a Threads account. I'm just like, not another meta thing.
Louise, go ahead.
I'm on Threads, and like my sort of beef about Threads is that, Mike, I don't know if you've seen this, but I feel like however they're like arranging the algorithm, like right now it's a really sort of primitive experience, and like you sort of have to look at the feed that they've made for you. And I don't know if this is because of their ethos of like trying to not make it about news, but it sort of has a Reddit quality in a bad way. And like what I mean by that is like, because like I'm not subscribing to like r/relationships or whatever, but I get these people who like must be like 3 degrees of separation from me, and I can't put it any differently than like they're just like airing their dirty laundry on there. And like, because it's kind of juicy, like it seems to like get a lot of engagement, but like I'll have some person, I have no idea who this is. And they're like, at my son's school yesterday, like the teacher said this. And I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't like understand. Like, but I kind of look at it because I'm like, wait, well, what's going on? Because like that used to. Yeah, because it used to happen on Twitter, and I would like quickly often see like, oh, this is relevant to my beat, or like this, whatever is happening here, like has some sort of connection. And so I should like tap it and engage. But what I'm realizing is that it often is just sort of, like random drama, but there's no links, and it's not like newsy. And so I think that's why it's getting amplified.
It's just like, she's a lady. Yeah. She loves drama. That's what they're going for. If I were on there, I guess they would just show me power tools. I don't like just.
I'd rather have power tools. Exactly. I think you would see like the drama about power tools.
I would love power tool drama, to be honest.
I get the drama feed too. I mean, again, the thing, there are a couple of things with Threads, and I can't figure out, like the UI just doesn't work for me. Like I don't quite understand what the, how they've set up the UI, and I keep getting confused. But yes, it does keep presenting sort of weird drama things in the feed. And again, it's like another reason not to just like keep talking about Blue Sky, but like, I like the fact that I can choose the algorithm that I want to use on Blue Sky. And I can't believe that no other social media has offered. It seems like such a straightforward thing to offer.
Here's the risk.
On other services.
People turned down Mastodon, which I still kind of want to support because I don't know why. But they turned it down because it's too complicated. And it seems like what you just described is so complicated that no normal person's ever.
But you can just sign in.
For which part?
Just like, well, who should I follow? I don't understand. What am I following?
That's on Threads or on Blue Sky?
On Blue Sky.
Well, no.
So let's forget Threads. Look,
okay.
I didn't say that clearly. Threads out. Meta. Screw it. Instagram. Screw it. Don't want it. Too much algorithm. Got it.
I feel like I have to use it for work. That's where I'm at with all the Meta products.
Same thing with Facebook and Instagram.
I have to use it for the bands.
Yeah.
Occasionally I check and see if family members are still alive. That's it.
Facebook, the thing you have to use. Not the thing you want to use.
It's like a family reunion that you don't want to go to.
The thing with Blue Sky, and again, like I'm not here to like advertise Blue Sky, but the thing I'll note is that they've really sort of thought pretty hard about designing it so that if you don't want to think about those things and you don't care about those things, you don't have to.
Okay. And so you could just go to Blue. By the way, I'm using Deck Blue, which is already
great.
Yeah, I love it because it's basically TweetDeck for Blue Sky, and I can have all my lists I keep calling them lists. I still have that Twitter mentality. I can have my custom feeds and all that. I like it. But again, and also I have to say, this conversation does not happen in the American kitchens across the country.
No one's like, Threads or Blue Sky, Grandma, what do you think?
And saying, I think you should use Blue Sky. No,
you hand Grandma her little robot because you're never going to visit her again. But before you leave, Grandma, what are you thinking? Threads, Blue Sky, Mastodon? She's like, I don't know. It's kind of difficult, that whole Mastodon.
It's really only tech journalists. It's a very narrow group of people who even care.
But I think that's okay, because I think that with all these platforms, the reality is that, and this is a problem, right? Like TikTok's running into this problem right now. Twitter's always had this problem where like 10% of the user base, if you're lucky, right, are sort of the power posters who are like producing all the content that people come in for. So as long as it's like pretty frictionless to become a lurker, I think it's
Yes.
fine. And if these like algorithms make that 10% more engaged, makes them post more, helps them find stuff that they want to surface, then I think it ends up working. Because like, what kept me on Twitter for so long is that the search function was incredible, right? Yeah. So I could surface stuff. It was still kind of janky, but it was like pretty easy to like see what people were talking about on certain topics. And that made it a lot easier to like do my reporting, right? And so then I would surface that to my audience. And I think that that's the key. So it can be really complicated, but as long as grandma is like engaged enough to lurk, then it's all good.
Lurky grandma.
But that's a good point. The Mastodon was you couldn't get to anything until you made some decisions.
Yeah,
about what
that was
community.
the issue. It made the onboarding was too hard.
Yeah, you can't just lurk. You got to figure out where you're going to be. Twitter, by the way, when you go to Twitter now, I feel like I'm an outsider at a group that I don't even know what they're.
I don't know what's going on.
What's going on? Get Grok, Haiti, Chaos, Cannibal Gangs.
There's a lot of anger.
I don't. It's weird. It's just weird.
It's like you walk into it like a subculture, like a bar, and clearly there's been an argument in the bar like 5 minutes before you got there. So there's like this vibration of anxiety, and you walk into Twitter and you're like.
Twitter's always been
I'm
like
gonna
a
go
bar.
back over the Blue Sky. I had like 12,000 Twitter followers. I have like 3 Blue Sky followers. Totally fine with that.
Yeah.
Because I know what it's like to have like a bunch of people follow you. I know what it's like to go on Facebook and have follow a bunch of people. I'm like, I don't need that anymore.
My team thinks my marketing team thinks I'm crazy because I have 500,000 followers on Twitter, but I don't participate. I don't have anything to do with it.
Yeah. What are you going to do with it? What's the
interested.
value of it? It's like the 1 million Google Plus followers I had.
Yeah.
What was that for?
Right.
I don't know
Who cares?
why. I think I was on a list when Google Plus launched.
Yeah.
Because I wrote an article about Google Plus, and I guess Google liked it, like put him on the list. And so I had a million Google Plus followers.
Wow.
And it was like the value of like 12 Twitter followers at the time.
Exactly.
I will note that I recently surpassed the number of Twitter followers I had now on Blue Sky. I have more on Blue Sky.
Oh, that's
You're doing good work.
On Twitter.
Yeah, but you're doing good work. I'm, again, tweeting about Dreamweaver. Or skeeting or whatever we want to call it.
51,205 followers, Mike.
I got nobody.
But why don't you
Totally
have? Why don't you have Mike at Tech Dirt? Why do you
that I need to do that. That takes time, and as you noted very early on the beginning of this, I have a lot of projects on my plate.
He doesn't sleep.
And so,
You need somebody to help you.
Actually, setting up things like the DNS stuff for Blue Sky, I have not done.
Yeah.
But
And the original paper, though, you do link in your bio on Blue Sky, which is protocols, not platform. And I think it's still, to this day, very brilliant and insightful and right on. And I'm really glad that it inspired Jack Dorsey to think about another way of handling this. Good. I have high hopes because we need Twitter. I know this sounds nuts to everybody.
Something like Twitter, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, we do. And honestly, was starting to think maybe Twitter might, first of all, no one thought it would survive, that Elon was going to fire everybody and just go bankrupt. So the fact that it's still running, still seems pretty vigorous, is amazing. I think Twitter is going to get through the Elon era and something will emerge. It may not be something I want to.
Well, if it goes down, it's Earth's fault. No, wait. You have to.
Yeah, no.
You need to answer to Earth.
Earth will judge.
Earth
will
judge you.
Yeah, we're talking about
What,
Elon's
Earth? Just the planet?
strange
people?
pronouncement that the
international-
advertisers killed Twitter and Earth will judge them.
Earth.
He is so weird.
Earth.
He is just so
Not Mars.
strange.
They're fine with it.
Yeah, Mars is
So
Mars, Jupiter, Venus are like, nah, we don't need that. But Earth.
So, okay, so if you believe, as I do, that we need something like Twitter, we need a communal space to talk. We didn't know we needed Twitter until Twitter happened, right? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is really useful. A place you can go if you hear somebody died, if you want to know what people are saying about a news story, if you want to get in a fight with somebody, like in a bar. It was perfect for that. And we kind of need something like that without the Elon nuttiness. And so you think, it sounds like you think, Mike, and I kind of may be starting to agree with you that the winner here is Blue Sky. A lot of them have kind of fallen off the edge.
Well, Darth is on Blue Sky, so that's literally one of the reasons.
And Drill, right? Isn't Drill on Blue Sky?
Darth
I'm like,
and
where's
Drill?
Darth
Yes.
is here. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. I know Darth.
Darth is on hibernation, but the hibernation should be ending soon. So
Okay.
every year, Darth hibernates.
And
in the
Mike,
winter.
are you going to create your custom? What would you call a custom Blue Sky?
So right now, they only just recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, launched what their version of Federation is, which is hosting a personal data server. And so that's all of your information, all of your skeets or posts or whatever you want to call it.
By the way, can we fix that, Mike? You've got Jay's ear.
So Jay
we could call it beats.
does not want it. So part of the reason Skeets is called Skeets is because the entire Blue Sky company was just
Said,
like,
no.
do not call it that. And as soon as they did that, everyone's like, well, Skeets it is.
Can I put on a vote?
Scats.
Can you talk to people?
Beats.
You know somebody? Bleats. It's Blue Sky. Bleats.
Like a sheep?
Bleats.
Yeah.
Like a sheep.
Yeah.
Bleats. No, maybe not.
I think the ship is sailed.
I think it's Skeets.
I think
It's the worst.
Where did that come from?
it was just people joking in the early days. I mean, when
It's
Blue
the
Sky was
remake boat of...
Isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't it kind of dirty?
yeah, well, yes.
Okay.
Yes, you're correct. This is why some people
Isn't it kind of
liked
dirty?
it.
That's the joke, Leo.
I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yes.
I'm just like your grandpa going, wait a minute, that sounds dirty. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you figured out why some people were attracted
Now I
to
understand.
it.
Okay. All right, but I do want something that is a sane Twitter. I really do want that. I think we need. It's a useful thing. So
Yeah, and I'll say, like, you know, I don't know that it's going to win, and I don't know if winning is a concept that even makes sense in this context. But what I will say is that I've been really impressed with the way they're thinking about it and the vision that Jay in particular, and this is what I discussed with her when I had her on the podcast, what her overall vision is. And it's very, very thorough and very, very detailed. And it is not, as many of these other platforms are, sort of, you know, seat of your pants, like coming up with stuff on the fly, dealing with each crisis as it comes in. She has a complete vision of how to create a kind of global decentralized system where she is not the only person in control, but that everybody has some element of control that actually works well and is not confusing and is not complicated. That vision is really compelling.
And because this is brand new, probably nobody's stepped forward and say, okay, I'm going to make whatever. They need a name, not Skeets, for whatever this moderated, I guess people are already making lists or whatever they call them. And
feeds.
Feeds. So I guess people are already doing that.
Yes, people are already making feeds, and you already have seen, like, Deck Blue is, you know, that's not a Blue Sky product. And there are a few others like that, and there are, I believe, people planning to do some of these other services as well. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see how well they actually develop and whether or not there really is a thriving community. It looks like it in terms of feeds and third-party apps. Whether or not the moderation layer is the same, that remains to be seen.
Well, I did the DNS thing kind of back in the day because I thought, well, that's really cool. The initial promise of it was perhaps I thought that you would have your own federated, maybe.
Well,
but I guess it'll be a database at Leo. So it's leolaporte.me. And at the very least, that's authentication. Like that's got to be Leo. Yes. He owns it. I could have made it Twit, but I made it leolaporte.me. So. And then now, would that be where the data would be hosted?
Right. So you could now, as of a few weeks ago, they say it's still a little bit techie, and they're going to make it easier and simpler. But you can set up your own personal data server, what they refer to as a PDS, in which you are then hosting everything that is related to you, but you are still connected to the wider overall system.
Very interesting. So replies to me would go there. My Skeets would go there.
You'll get used to it. It's tough at first, but you'll get there.
Can I call it my Skeet Wad? Would that be? No.
Please no.
Please no.
No, I'm going to have to leave.
All right, we'll take a break. More news to come. We're almost done. I'm sorry. I am. I really am. With Roberto Baldwin, who's having second thoughts. He's going to stay. I'm going to make it
I got nowhere to go.
Yeah, I got an ankle bracelet on you. You just don't know it yet. Louise Matsakis, so great to have you. Congratulations on the new venture. You may also like that beehive.com. And, of course, Mike Masnick, who is, whether he knows it or not, a seminal influence.
Oh, gosh.
I didn't say
Please
that.
don't.
I really didn't. I didn't say that. I'm so sorry.
Please don't say that. That's terrible.
of all of us. What a panel. We'll have more coming up after this word. Some good news. The FDA has cleared its first over-the-counter continuous glucose monitor. There are 14 million diabetics in the United States, many of them, like me, type 2 diabetics. In the past, you've had to get a prescription for a glucose monitor like the Abbott or the Dexcom. Now the Dexcom Stelo glucose biosensor system is over-the-counter for anyone over 18, as long as you're not an insulin-dependent diabetic. Really great for not only people with type 2 diabetes, but people who just want to monitor how their blood sugar is doing. And I think for perhaps half the nation, the estimates for pre-diabetes or metabolic syndrome in the U.S. are a huge percentage. This would be a great thing to kind of get educated so you don't become diabetic. I've used these in the past. It seems a little scary. They do insert a tiny filament subcutaneously to monitor it, but it's not painful. It's very easy. You wear them for 2 weeks. And this one, it automatically sends the information every 15 minutes to your phone. You can get notifications. You can get alerts. It's a great idea. And given the Ozempic epidemic in the United States, maybe it'd be a good idea to get this first. So I wanted to mention this. The FDA has approved over-the-counter continuous glucose monitors. Will be available sometime in the next couple of months.
I want to try it. I feel like it's a great innovation, and I'm glad that it's going to be over the counter. It seems like a silly thing to need a prescription for. Yeah. I do wonder, though, if it's going to help people push them to then ask for Ozempic, right? And say like, hey, I have the data here in my app doc, But I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, right? I think a lot of times people don't understand, like, why are they so tired or why do they not feel well? And if you can see this data, I think that would be really helpful for a lot of people to understand.
Performance athletes wear CGMs because it's a really great way to look at how your diet is impacting your performance and vice versa. It's a really, even just to do it for a little while, is really incredibly useful.
Yeah, I've heard, I've had friends who've stopped, having one or two, glasses of wine or beer or something with dinner because they got an Oura ring, and then they could immediately see that night, even though they wouldn't realize how bad the impact was on their sleep, right?
Yep.
So I could see something similar happening here, where you have a really sugary meal or something, or get that Frappuccino from Starbucks, and then you see the impact on your blood sugar, and maybe that would motivate some people, right?
I need something like this. I'm pre-diabetic. There's diabetes on both sides of my family.
Exactly.
And I eat like a 12-year-old boy, like a child. I'm like, ooh, hot corn dogs. And I just horrible.
The worst thing, though, is when I had the monitor and then I would have a corn dog and I would see it and I would have ananother corn dog. It's like...
Right, it doesn't always work, right?
I'm going to get the highest score today.
800, yeah! No, it is really valuable to at least understand that what it's doing to you. Whether you act on it or not is up to you.
I would like to act on it better.
It would be good to act on it. Absolutely. It's an epidemic in this country. The solar winds, midnight blizzard, Nobelium saga continues. You may remember Microsoft months ago said, so some Russian hackers happened to get some emails of some of our executive teams. It wasn't a big deal. It's getting worse and worse. Now Microsoft is saying that the same Midnight Blizzard group stole source code. This is just getting worse and worse and worse. Microsoft's kind of been downplaying this attack for a long time. At first they said, well, they didn't really, they only got a small percentage of the company emails happen to be the executive team, but a small percentage.
Just a few emails.
Just a few emails. Microsoft in a blog post said that Midnight Blizzard has been exfiltrating from our systems access to some of the company's source code repositories and internal systems. Oh, but good news. To date, this should reassure you, to date, we have found no evidence that Microsoft-hosted customer-facing systems have been compromised.
We've found no evidence.
To date, we have found no evidence. Go ahead, parse that.
Hey, don't send that thing over. We got a press release we got to send out.
To date.
Send it over in like 3 weeks.
Wait. This is just a nightmare. I think
maybe
Microsoft
they'll take the source code of Microsoft Teams and fix it.
Wouldn't that be funny?
Wouldn't that be nice?
If they
Wouldn't
just
that be awesome? Microsoft Teams worked.
We have Russian hacker version of Teams that works. He's good.
You know what?
Yeah, would you trade a working Teams for whatever spying they might do on you?
I might. I have to use a lot of Teams for work.
People who use Teams
great
are not fans of Teams. I haven't had to use it.
The SAE IT department, I don't know how they did it, but they figured out how to make Teams work on a Mac, which I couldn't do. When I did my interview, they used Teams. I had to use my phone because I kept trying to set it up on my computer. I kept trying to set it up. I was a tech reporter. I can
Isn't that sad?
I can make Arduinos do cool things.
Yeah, but you can't set up Teams.
But I can't get Teams to work on my Mac. I can open up the terminal and do nerdy things. Can't get Teams to work.
EU is starting to crack. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I have Windows and I can't get it to work either.
No.
Has any of this stuff gotten any better? I will say the other day I was with a friend and she was showing me an email that she got. And I said, oh, like, what client is that? Like, that looks kind of interesting. And she was like, this is Outlook. I just have dark mode on. And I was like, oh, I haven't looked at Outlook in so long that it like looks slightly better than I thought. She was like, what? This is my MIT email. Like, this is an Outlook email. And I was shocked. I was like, oh, it doesn't look as horrible as I recall.
It's still not good. If someone sends me an email and we're talking and I reply to their email and then I want to reply again to on the thread, if I hit reply, it just replies to me.
Oh my God.
That's not good.
So I sent an email about an important thing at work, and I got the email, and I was like, oh, I must hit reply all right. And then like 30 minutes later, I'm like, hold on, let me double check that.
It only went to you?
I sent an email to myself. You have to hit reply all every single time, even though you're only talking to one other person.
So Outlook in dark mode is kind of like Robbie in his Daft Punk helmet. It looks good on the outside.
In the inside, it's just
it's a nightmare.
I'm wearing a snowboarding helmet.
Is there a fan in there?
Monitor. The other guy in the thing has a fan in his,
but not you,
because he passed out at a show.
Lord.
Not in mine. But what happens is that, and I really need a fan. Is that I'm wearing it looks like a VR headset, but it's really like a wearable monitor. It fogs up because I'm sweating.
Oh, so that's how you see in this thing.
So, no, but all I can see is my computer screen because I'm running like this giant Ableton Live setup for all the songs. So like halfway through the set, I'm doing this. You see my hand just going underneath the mask, constantly adjusting it, and I can't reach in. And I'm just like, why didn't I just put a fan in here?
We were going to ask Robbie to wear his Daft. So he has just to explain this. It's probably a little confusing. Robbie, besides being all the other things he is, and a wonderful guy too, also is a very talented musician. In fact, Benito played with you for a cup of coffee, who has a number of cover bands, including a Daft Punk cover band called Robots, After All.
Yes.
And as people know, Daft Punk now disbanded. So this is your last chance to see them is Robots After All.
Oh, there's also a really, really good one.
Out
there. They look just like Daft Punk, who are, as far as I can tell, much better than we are, and they tour nationally. We're regional, and I thought it would be funny is if instead of having regular size helmet, we had 1.75 scale, so we looked like bobbleheads. I thought that was hilarious, and
until you had to wear it.
They're so heavy. After I put all those tiny mirrors on, it's.
I love it.
But it's a fun show.
I would love to see it.
We play the music and people dance.
I love Daft Punk. I think the music's great. Robots After All. We'll catch Robbie's suffering at a club near you.
I'm suffering, but I'm suffering with joy.
Yeah. I forgot how this came up.
It was the Microsoft Teams of helmets.
That's right. On to the news. Apple fined 1.8 billion euros. That's more than $2 billion by the EU over music. Spotify complained, and I think quite rightly, that Apple charges at 30%, if it were to, it doesn't anymore, but used to, allow you to subscribe to Spotify on an iPhone. Furthermore, you'd have to install Spotify, where Apple's music is pre-installed on iPhones, and of course, Apple doesn't have to pay itself 30%. Spotify said, that's unfair, Your Honor. That's unfair competition, and the EU has now agreed. This is a massive penalty, which, of course, Apple will appeal, so they don't have to pay it for some time.
They got the money.
They do have the money. I mean, no one's doubting that they have the money. They're a $3 trillion company, but nevertheless, that's a hefty fine. 0.5% of Apple's worldwide revenue, which it could go up to 5%, but right now it's 0.5%. It's the third biggest antitrust fine the commission has imposed. Google got I think the biggest. They were fined $8 billion in total over a decade for infringements, although they haven't paid a penny either because of appeals. They go on and on.
Lawyers are cheaper than $8 billion is what I've learned.
Apple's response is Spotify's doing just fine. What are you talking about? And they're doing fine because of us. People install Spotify on iPhones. They wouldn't be as successful as they are, and they are completely dominant, especially in Europe. If it over even Apple's own music, if it weren't for us.
There's no winners in this one. There's no one to root for.
They're also claiming that Spotify's getting all this benefit for free, and so they put up this blog post that I think was a little bit disingenuous.
No,
where they talk
Apple
about
disingenuous.
Yeah. Wow. They're saying Apple, Spotify's getting all of this for free. They're not paying us a cent.
They use our developer tools for free.
All of this stuff, right? But what they leave out is that, at the same time, like, the availability of Spotify on the iPhone also makes the iPhone more valuable and is leading to more sales of the iPhone, which is where Apple makes all of its money in the first place. So I find that, they're complaining, because really what this whole complaint is about is whether or not Spotify is allowed to tell people, if you go to our website and subscribe online, it costs this much. And so Apple had banned that, and that was what Spotify was mainly complaining about. The whole thing just seems really, really silly. But the other sort of really annoying part about this and silly part is that this week, on Wednesday or Thursday, I forget which day now, was the DMA went into effect, and
March
Apple's
6th was the big DMA day.
It's the big DMA day when the companies are supposed to do all these things, and the way that the DMA was presented in the EU was that it was supposed to solve all of these competitive problems with the big gatekeepers, as they call them under the law. And so it felt weird that 2 days before the DMA was going into effect that suddenly we would get this fine, because it was, well, didn't you need the DMA to solve problems like this? And now are you saying that it doesn't solve problems like this?
Yeah, this fine was under an earlier, basically antitrust law. The Digital Markets Act, the DMA, is, I think, as much as anything about imposing interoperability among the big players. Now, Apple's messages, ironically, is too small to be considered subject to the DMA in Europe. They're too small a percentage. But if it had been, then Apple would have had to provide interoperability with other messaging apps, which is good for consumers. I think that's a good thing. Interoperability is absolutely a good thing. But in order to qualify for the DMA, you have to be a gatekeeper, which means you have to be kind of a dominant player in the EU, and Apple apparently was not. I'm sure WhatsApp is. Anyway, I'm going to be very interested to see what happens with the DMA. March 6th was the day. Apple did release an update the day before, March 5th, iOS 17.4, which allowed for third-party app stores, also a requirement of the DMA, because the App Store is dominant in the EU. And ironically, one of the things Apple warned is, well, if you buy something in a third-party app store in the EU, the minute you leave the EU, the clock starts ticking, and very shortly thereafter, everything will stop working that you bought elsewhere.
Oh,
so they're fencing it all off. You got to be in the EU to take advantage of this.
There's a lot that, if you look in the last month or so, Apple, sort of getting ready for the DMA to go into effect, that I think a lot of people would refer to as malicious compliance.
Exactly.
In that they are complying, but everyone is complaining. So Spotify has complained about the way Apple's implementing the DMA. Yelp has complained about the way Apple's doing it. Epic has complained. All of these companies are complaining that Apple is complying with the DMA, but doing so in ways that was not what they expected or what they think the EU Commission intended.
Yet to hear a response from the EU on this. I would hope that they would say, yeah, Apple, that's not enough. We got to go farther. Mozilla complained because so one of the things the DMA will do, and in fact, I presume our EU listeners are now getting a kind of a ballot, a browser-style ballot on their phone when they install the new version of iOS that says, well, which browser do you want to use? Because in theory, you could have non-WebKit browsers on your iPhone now. But Firefox pointed out, yeah, that means now we have to write 2 browsers, one for the EU and one for the rest of the world. That's not a good solution for us. It actually really underlines the biggest problem the EU has, which is the internet technology is global. And it's very hard for a country, whether it's the EU or the US with TikTok, to enforce local rules on a global technology. It's hard to do.
You really have to go for the largest audience and enforce the rules there, and then it makes financial sense just to do the rule everywhere else.
Yeah, but Apple's not doing that, and that's exactly that malicious compliance. It's saying, well, if you want it, EU, you can have it, but no one else can. WhatsApp will now let you see messages from other messaging services in the EU, like Signal. We'll see what else happens. I mean, the companies that are subject to this are Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, and yes, ByteDance, all big enough in certain parts of their businesses anyway to be subject to the Digital Markets Act. But that story has not yet been written. We'll have to wait and see what happens to Apple and to the others. Let's see. I have a nice little story here about the future. Would you like to hear about the future?
Again? Haven't talked enough
always
about
the future. The future.
Is it here yet?
Not yet. It's coming someday. MIT. Right. So we've talked a lot about fusion. And fusion being the last best hope of surviving the planet Earth. Fusion power is safe, is non-polluting, and doesn't exist except on the sun. But MIT says that the breakthrough, you may have heard 2 years ago, we talked about it. MIT scientists claimed that it achieved a breakthrough in fusion, that it could happen at lower temperatures. I mean, the problem was that you had to do it at basically absolute zero, which meant you had to put more energy in than you were getting out of the fusion reaction. MIT has now said in a comprehensive report, 6 separate studies published in the IEEE Transactions on applied superconductivity, quote, overall, this new magnet-based design has basically changed the cost of per watt of a fusion reactor by a factor of almost 40 in one day. Now fusion has a chance. So I think this is worth talking about. It's not here yet, but progress is being made, and it is possible we will have fusion reactors at some point in our lifetime, which I think would be a dramatic change. Anything to say about that? I just raised the issue.
I'm excited.
I'm excited.
Can you see it on my face?
I'm excited. It's exciting.
I'm excited about fusion like I'm excited about solid-state batteries. It's always 5 years away.
Yeah.
It's
or
always,
quantum computing.
Or quantum. Everything's always 5 years away. It's coming.
Or artificial general intelligence.
Yeah. AI
Any day now.
Any day now.
Yeah, but the thing is, some of those things, I mean, I used to say the same thing about video calling and voice recognition, and now those were always 5 years in the future technologies also, but now both of them
now
are
we
here.
got it. So it'll be here. It just takes a little
hopefully
while.
some of these are actually coming. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
You remember the AT&T You Will ads?
Yes.
What? Those are great. Oh, my God.
I watched them recently. Yeah.
You will. Oh,
You
now
will.
I remember.
How
the
life
voice.
will be. Yeah.
Will you do something?
I'll just show
They're
you.
astoundingly prescient.
Let's
But
see.
also
Here's one.
very bossy.
Have you ever borrowed a book?
Is that Tom Selleck?
Miles
Yeah.
away,
Yeah.
It's Magnum PI, everyone.
across the country.
Oh my God, the nostalgia is insane.
Yeah.
Or sent someone a fax
Not the PDA.
Send someone a fax
from the beach.
from the beach, ladies and gentlemen. No,
And the company that'll bring it to you.
not AT&T,
You ever received an email
buddy.
from your boss on the beach?
You ever received your own email back from Outlook? I think these are actually really fun. I mean, that was GPS. It really does kind of show a future that did happen.
From cash machines.
Cash machines, wow.
Oh, you can buy tickets from a cash machine.
You will.
Company that'll bring it to you.
Not AT&T.
AT&T.
Well, you can buy stuff. Train tickets.
Yeah.
Watch the movie you wanted to. the minute you wanted to.
No.
Every special things. That's all taken from jazz. Now, any questions from faraway places? Oakland?
Where did jazz come from?
Good question.
Where did jazz?
Wow.
A video call at a phone booth. What's a phone booth, Mommy?
What's her name, Elfman?
The company that'll bring it.
Is it Jenna Elfman?
It looked like it.
Could be.
There you go.
Have you ever kept an eye on your home when you're not at home?
We've done all of these now.
Or gotten a phone call
How was your day?
on your wrist.
I've talked on my watch. I have.
The company that'll bring it to you.
Thanks,
Not
Tom.
AT&T, but
Thanks, Tom Selleck.
if they just said Apple, maybe, fun. Okay, you're going to stop me now. Benito doesn't want any more of it, so he's
I've got quite enough of this.
switched away.
Quite enough of your old person shenanigans.
I don't know if we're going to get TMC.
No, we won't get pulled down for that. That's all pro AT&T.
Well, you think AT&T is sending DMCA notices for that ad?
We get everything. We get everything. Anytime I play anything from YouTube, instantly.
Wow.
Really?
Instantly.
Wow.
Oh my God, it's incredible.
Oh,
It's all this. It's automated content ID. So all these companies have to do is,
if you don't protect your IP, then it sets a precedent.
Well, but it doesn't have to be your IP. That's the beauty of it.
No,
It's
that's
whatever
not-
you
and-
say.
But it's not even true with copyright. It's true with trademark, but copyright, that's
there
not
you
the
go.
case.
Trademark, sorry. I'm not a lawyer.
You will.
No, I'm not. I'm not even close.
You will.
Clearly, I'm not. I'm the opposite. You ever take the bar exam from a computer? You will. You're not going to pass, though.
This was the year the SATs are no longer administered on paper. You do it all.
The end of the Scantron.
The end of the Scantron.
I
No
never
more-
took the SATs.
no more
number two pencils.
Yep. You see?
Ticonderoga people are going to be so upset
Very
about
bad
this.
news. Yeah, you will. Have you ever joined a club to support a podcast network like Club Twit? You will. I hope you will. Club Twit is our way of getting around the fact that nobody wants to buy ads anymore on podcasts. We unfortunately have seen a dramatic drop in revenue, but we want to keep doing shows, and I think you want to keep listening. All I would ask, if you listen to more than one show a week from the podcast, is you spend a little money to keep us going. $7 a month. You get ad-free versions of all the shows. Ad-free means tracker-free. And I know Mike will know this because he does quite a few podcasts. These days, ad agencies are very, very interested in tracking you and the people who are hearing those shows. And we don't want to do it. So we don't, which means we lose advertisers. But we think we can make it up if you, our devoted listeners, would just help us out. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit. You get our Discord server, which is really active and fun. You get additional content, video from all of the shows, even shows we only put out in audio. If you are not yet a member of Club Twit, you will. Maybe before the end of this show. That would be nice. And thank you in advance. We had a great week this week on the network. We want to show you a little video we've made of some of the highlights.
Previously on Twit. Security Now.
Apple has apparently invented levels of security.
Oh.
Post-quantum level 3.
Oh, what's
and
that?
That's something that Apple just made up out of whole cloth because
Of course they did.
They said, we want to be special. They miscategorized Telegram, saying that it didn't have end-to-end encryption. It's like, what are you talking about?
Coming up on This Week in Space, is Russia really building a nuclear space weapon?
This capability, the ability to destroy, disable, or degrade Western satellites, is something we know Russia and other nations like China are very actively pursuing.
Coming up on iOS Today, I'm joined by wonderful app developer James Thompson to talk about Vision Pro.
I could not give you a prediction as to whether this is going to succeed or fail. I think the only reason it might fail is if developers don't make stuff for it.
Tech News Weekly.
U.S. lawmakers trying once again to ban TikTok.
Sent a push notification actually asking users to essentially reach out to their representatives.
It almost gives, well, no, it does. I quite literally have goosebumps. It gives me goosebumps because that is like, that's a flex.
Mac Break Weekly.
The EU says, Apple, we'd like $2 billion.
The argument that, oh, well, they're exploiting our resources and our app store and the developer tools. They have to. You force them to. You don't allow them to develop the Spotify app with anything else, so you don't get to make that argument.
Yeah.
This Week in Google.
Elon Musk suing OpenAI, but OpenAI has responded.
Yeah.
They got the emails. Basically, Elon says you got to raise $1 billion, give me majority equity, board control, CEO, and merge with Tesla.
The complaint quotes OpenAI's attainment of AGI, like the song Tomorrow in Annie, will always be a day away, ensuring that Microsoft will
Tech just like you like it.
Too bad Ant's not here. We could do a rousing rendition of The Sun'll Come Out Tomorrow. Oh, please don't sing.
Billions on tomorrow.
There'll be AGI.
Ant just said in the Discord, I hate you all. All of you. All of you. Not our finest hour. If only
people got a song in their heart, Leo.
Yeah.
Don't disrate.
We just need the Daft Punk helmets. So last story of the week comes from the fabulous folks at Roku. If you bought a Roku TV, you might have seen the banner that said, hey, we're changing our terms. And if you don't agree, bye-bye. This is ridiculous. Roku, like many companies, we do it. I mean, I don't have a problem with this. Says that you will have to, if you have a dispute with them, accept binding arbitration instead of going to the courts. I don't have so much of a problem with that. But I do have a problem with the fact that people who bought Roku TVs would have to agree to it before they could continue to use their Roku TV. Mike, is that even legal?
Well, it depends on your definition of legal, I guess. I mean, yes, for the most part, this has been determined to be legal. Not that many of us think that's the right answer, but more or less, it's been shown that these sort of click wrap agreements that you agree, and the original agreement probably had something in there that said we can update these terms at any time.
So you'd already agreed to that. Yeah, I get it.
You most likely did, and therefore they have changed the terms, and then this happens. And it's, it is sort of a statement of the times that we live in, where the things that you buy are no longer the things that you own, and that's problematic for a whole bunch of reasons, but it is reality.
I like it. Mashed Potato in our chat room says, didn't Darth Vader say that?
Yes.
I'm altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Yeah. They are kind of the Darth Vader of TVs, I guess, now. By the way, another way they get around this, you don't want to agree. That's okay. There is no way to do that on the TV set. If you click no, you get another thing that says, yeah, but you got to. Or,
yeah, but you got to.
Yeah, but you got to. Or you can send them a letter. Send a letter to Roku's general counsel in California. They need the name of each person opting out, contact information for each such person, the specific product, models, software, or services used that are at issue, the email address you used to set up your Roku account, and, if applicable, a copy of your purchase receipt. And then we may consider it ridiculous. Ridiculous.
They're bringing back postal mail. Great.
Thank goodness. It's a little subsidy for the U.S. Postal Service. You have till March 21st to write that letter. So find that receipt and get to work, okay?
I just bought a Roku TV a week ago.
Did you really?
We had a TV.
Have you agreed to anything?
I don't think I've agreed to anything, but who knows? When you set up stuff now, you're just like, You just want to sign in.
Exactly.
And just get it
Nobody
over
reads that.
I don't have time to pay attention to what I'm doing.
I think Roku knows that most people, and I would include myself, will just say, yeah, fine, binding arbitration. Fine, I don't care.
Fine.
What am I? I'm not going to look at. Trust me. If you've ever filed a lawsuit, you don't want to. I don't care what it's for or how much merit your case has. You never. Am I wrong, Mike? You've gone to court. I know you have.
I have gone to court. I'm always on the defendant side. I've never filed a lawsuit against
anyone. How awful it is for everybody involved.
The entire process is really designed to just wear everybody down and make them hate everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Don't sue Roku. So, in other words, forget the letter and the thing. Just press the button and
go
on with your life. Watch Netflix. Try to zone out.
Or whatever.
Pretend the world isn't ending right around your head.
Watch Star Trek.
This is fine.
Star Wars.
This is fine.
Star something.
Roberto is at SAE now. Stands for?
Society of Automotive Engineers, established in 1906.
By Henry Ford.
And a bunch of other nerds.
And the idea being there should be standards? Like
yes. So the idea
the brake pedal should always be on the left and the accelerator on the right?
Sort of, yeah. Like SAE is a standards body. And we work with people within the industry in order to create those standards. So we don't just like make stuff up for funsies. So I think the big one is right.
You should think about it.
Yeah, we should think about it. We should figure it out. So right now the big one's the J3400. It's the Tesla port. Tesla owned the port. As soon as we started taking over for standards, if you go to Tesla's site about it, it actually points you to SAE. So SAE is actually, they're working on the standard right now.
And you can now for free if you have a Ford Lightning or Mustang. I just turned my Mach-E in, but you could send away and you'd get a free adapter so that you could use the Tesla superchargers.
Yep. So you can plug your up until June something. Do it now if you own those vehicles. You'll get a free adapter. After that's like $200 and something, and you don't want to pay $200.
It seems. I have to say, it seems a little like giving in. Like, okay, you win. Elon, we tried to electrify America. We tried to make chargers, and it didn't happen. Now, I don't know if it's the Inflation Reduction Act, but I think it was put in like $10 billion for nationwide chargers.
You can get money from the government if you're a company who is building a charger. It has to be within a certain mileage of a major corridor, and the uptime has to be 97%. So
that's the problem with Electrify America.
So right now, currently, like the best estimates are uptime is around 80%. Wow. That's like a lot of people that, different journalists, different people who are doing research, so if you own an EV, I own an EV. You go to the station and two of them are broke.
Almost always.
And then everyone's doing the shuffle where you pull up to it, you plug your car in, it doesn't work. Someone walks over, oh yeah, that one doesn't work. So you move your car over to somewhere else and you plug it in, and then it's charging like 11 kilowatts. And you're just like, oh my gosh.
Or you unplug somebody else's car and you take their slot.
Oh my!
I've had people do that too.
Really?
Yes.
It should lock. Doesn't it lock on your vehicle?
Well, this was the Mach-E. Maybe it didn't. I've only used outside chargers twice in 3 years. Once when we went to Carmel and I needed to, and the other time just to see what it was like. Mostly I charge at home, like most people.
If you're a homeowner or if you have a spot to charge, like we have a level 2 charger at my house.
Yeah,
so
that's the best way to
rarely ever charge our personal vehicle outside the home.
But my son has a Model Y and he lives in a houseboat, so he doesn't. Yeah. He has to go to a charger.
Yeah, so for if you live in a multi-family.
Is he vlogging from the houseboat?
I hope so.
He is doing his TikTok. So he's just moved in. Watch for Salt Hank's new seaworthy TikToks. The thing is, he does cooking with big sharp knives. I don't know. I said, Henry, is it going to rock? He said, yeah, whatever.
It's okay.
Well, put it on gimbals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good it's a very good question.
More shanties. I feel like he needs more shanties. But
shanties,
but because I review or I drive other EVs, I take them to charging stations, and it's gotten a bit better. But
it's notoriously bad.
It really if you're not going to buy a vehicle if you can't refuel it, period.
Right.
And I think and if you're an automaker who has been looking at the landscape and you just keep seeing articles and you keep seeing people complain on social media that like, I went to this charging station or this charging station and this charging station, it wasn't working. Meanwhile, the Tesla charging network, it
works.
Rarely hear anything about it.
When I had a Tesla, it was amazing.
Yeah, just bloop, bloop, bloop.
Yep.
It's easy to plug
fast.
In. So at some point, Ford, GM, and literally everyone else who's a major automaker in the United States said, you know what? Fine. Let's just do this. And to be honest, the Tesla charger is like this.
Yeah, it's just an adapter.
This is what it's like when you're using the CCS.
He's using visual things, but it's like a LaCroix can plus glasses case plus iPhone.
And I just got
LaCroix all over your...
Whatever, however you say it.
Is it LaCroix or
LaCroix?
How do you say that, LaCroix?
But
how do you say that? You say LaCroix?
LaCroix.
All right,
I
Louise
say LaCroix, yeah.
Okay.
I say LaCroix.
But if you have mobility issues, like having that large, heavy CCS charger, it's difficult. Yeah. Meanwhile, that Tesla one is pretty light. It goes in. I've looked at the TIR, which is sort of the where we're going right now with the J3400.
And when
standard.
he says we, he means we.
Yeah, well, not I work for them. That's I'm part of the organization, but I'm not doing anything. I'm not nearly that smart. But they're working on making it so it's better than what Tesla has.
When you go to company meetings, do you bring your glasses, case, iPhone, and LaCroix?
I do. I show them I'm like this is
this is your car on CCS.
Trash. Stop
this
that.
This is your car on
This is
Nex.
your car on blah. Yeah, Nex. So yeah, I think it's at the end of the day, what's better for consumers.
I agree.
Is going to be better for EV adoption overall, which is better for the environment. Blah,
and
blah,
thank
blah,
you
blah.
for doing God's work at the.
It's all me.
At the SAE International Sustainable Careers.SAE.org, and of course in your How many groups do you have?
I have 5. I have 2. So if you live in Utah, April.
You have a Utah group?
No, we're going to Utah at the beginning of April.
Okay.
We're going to play a Talking Head show and an LCD sound system show in Salt Lake City.
Nice.
April 10th and 11th or 11th and 12th. Yeah, it's somewhere around there. But then the week before, if you love Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers.
Love them. Roadrunner.
Really? So
going
we're playing
3,000 miles an hour.
We're playing at Hotel Utah.
I love Jonathan
the Saturday
Richman.
before that at Hotel Utah, which has great food. Look at that. Mashed potato knows what I'm talking about.
If you remember something about Mary, the guy playing the guitar in the tree.
That was the only good thing about that movie,
Jonathan
by the way.
Richman.
I missed that movie when it came out, and then I watched it years later. I'm like, well, at least Jonathan Richman's in it.
It was funny the first time.
I missed the zeitgeist of it.
It was
and then
funny
when I was
the
watching
first
it,
time.
I'm like, everyone
didn't wear well. Yeah. Robbie, great to see you. Roberto Baldwin.
So
and
many
of course,
things.
we didn't mention you are one of the trio, along with Nicole Wakeland and Samable Samad, on wheelbearings.media.
Oh, yeah.
Your show just came out. In fact, your
podcast.
Your Rivian R2 talk was this most recent episode on Wheel
So I got
Bearings.
that podcast. I got an SAE podcast that's coming up.
Oh, nice.
We got videos coming up. I'm not as busy as Mike, though. I do sleep. I would be asleep right now.
Mike, I don't know how Mike does what he does. If I were you, when you're doing, I just have you might know I have a little bit of history with podcasting.
Wait,
years?
Yeah, and I know a little bit about podcasting. And if I were you, when you do the SAE podcast, you should model it on the Turbo Incannabulator podcast. I want to see you in a lab coat.
Proceeding in order
I want to see you with a blackboard. I want to see you with odd machine parts and a picture of the space shuttle.
Wait, why is there a catalytic converter? A rotor from brake rotor, and then what
Such an instrument is the turbo encabulator. Now, basically,
this is the SAE podcast. This is what it should be.
Generated by the relative motion
I would watch
of
it.
conductors and fluxes.
I could see you in that lab coat.
Modal
I'm just
interaction
saying.
of magneto-reluctance and capacitive.
What is happening?
Louise Matsakis, your brand new show newsletter. Newsletter comes out tomorrow. You may also if you are a Temu or a Shein. Is Shein over? Is it over for Shein? Are they done?
I don't think so. Not yet.
No?
Not
Okay.
yet. They're still trying to IPO, but we'll see how it goes. But
we'll
yeah,
see. Yep.
if you're interested if you want to know where the stuff you buy comes from, I would say.
Yes, it all comes from China. E-commerce, fashion, and China. Are you wearing fast fashion right now?
I am not. Actually, this is a good, I'm wearing a jacket made from recycled towels, actually.
Excellent.
I'm living my values. Kind of, yeah. It's kind of great. It's amazing. I usually wear it after I work out because it's kind of like just putting on a towel after you work out.
I ordered, people who watch the shows know that I have a problem middle of the night with Instagram. And I often buy stuff. I ordered what I thought was a sweater made out of seaweed.
Oh, yeah? What was it actually made out of?
Well, it's supposed to be sea cell, which is a new fiber made out of the seaweed. But
cool.
Apparently I pushed a button wrong. It is 3 a.m. And I instead got a sweater made out of yak wool.
That's incredible. They're right next to each other.
Yeah. I mean, I like it, but it's not seaweed. So I have ordered, it's not fast fashion either. It was not cheap. I have ordered the seaweed sweater, and I will model that next when I come back.
Yeah, please update me. I would love to know about the seaweed sweater and how it compares to the yak one.
Yeah, well, how's the yak one? Does it feel
It's
like...
great.
Oh,
well, Okay, so they say it's yak wool, but then you look at the label, it's 25% yak wool, and the rest is merino, which is always very nice. And it feels like a very nice wool sweater, but I'm trying to get away from wool because my wife's allergic to wool, and I don't get hugs if I wear wool. So I don't want to wear all cotton all the time, so I'm hoping seaweed will be...
How do you know she's not allergic to yak? I mean,
so I had her. So I thought it was seaweed.
Did you find a yak and have her hug you?
No, I thought it was seaweed. So I said, "Honey, hug me." I said, "How do I feel?" She said the same as always. I said, "Do you notice anything?" She said, "You smell a little bit like yak."
What? You sure she's not just allergic to you?
What? Fast fashion and more, e-commerce and China. You may also like .beehive.com. So great to see you, Louise. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Theo, it's been a really good time as always.
Always fun. I like your towel jacket. That's
fun,
cool.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's not such a long leap to go from a towel to a jacket. To go from seaweed to a jacket, it's a little bit more of a leap. But I'm puzzled by how you recycle a towel. I don't understand how do they mush it up and then make a jacket out of it?
No, they dyed it like a fun color, but you can see like there's like a striped towel.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the towels are still there. They just dyed it all one color and they added like, this is like a sweatshirt.
It's like the coat of many colors. It's like Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's made up different pieces of old towels.
Exactly. Yeah, and they just dyed it all the same color.
But it looks cool. No, it looks really neat.
Yeah. Fun, right?
Mike Masnick, now it's your turn. Founder and editor of techdirt.com. Brand new show coming out this week, controlaltspeech.com. And what are you going to talk about in Control Alt Speech?
We'll see. We're trying to have it be a newsy podcast, kind of like what you do, Leo.
Stop it. It's a money loser. Don't, please. I beg of you.
We have to see what happens this week. But I'm sure, there's various court cases. There's the laws that are happening.
Listen. Yeah.
All sorts of things.
You guys are the best, and I will listen. And
my co-host has a very nice British accent. So
I like that. That actually makes everything sound
at least
smarter.
worth 2 extra stars. On review.
Exactly.
It sounds smart. They sound smart.
Yeah,
I'm the dumb one on that podcast. So,
Dirt is amazing. The Copia Institute, what you're doing, the games you put together, just really impressive. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. And of course, the podcast itself, the Dirt podcast itself.
Yeah. I was going to say, we're working on some new games, so stay tuned for that.
Oh, cool.
Why do you do the games? You do not have enough to do?
I mean, the games have been really, really effective, right? I mean, the games are sort of like both fun and educational at the same time. And we get to sort of explore the different topics that we talk about.
We've played Moderator Mayhem on the air. And the purpose of this, well, besides the fun of it, is to really show you how hard it is to be a moderator.
Yep.
Here it is. Illegal. Review of a drug includes a photo of a syringe. Would you
keep it up or take it down?
Take it down or keep it up. And then when you say, oh, okay, fine, and that was the right answer, but you keep doing it, it gets harder and harder. No, that's wrong. Ban it. Oh, no right answer. Okay. So this is really a useful, a wonderful thing. By the way, I failed already because I didn't do it fast.
You've already been fired.
I'm going to get. You do. That's part of it. Is you have to do it fast.
I did it. I got fired.
It's so much fun. I got fired immediately. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Techdirt.com.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Thank you all for being here. Thanks especially to our club members that make this show possible. twit.tv/club. Twit if you're not already a member. We do This Week in Tech every Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. That's now Pacific Daylight Time because we are in summertime, which means it's 2100 UTC. UTC didn't move. We moved. It's not them, it's us. But you can watch us live at youtube.com/twit. We stream live while the shows are on. After the fact, you can get copies of this show and everything we do at our website, twit.tv. I think most of the shows have a dedicated YouTube channel for the video. And you can also, and this is the best way to do it, I think, subscribe to either the audio or the video on your favorite podcast client. You'll get it automatically the minute it's available. We must be, at this point, one of the longest running tech podcasts in the world. Our 19th birthday is coming up next month, right?
Wow.
April 2005. We can vote. We can carry a gun, but we can't drink.
Which is weird.
Which is a little weird. So I don't know. Our 1000th episode is in October. We're gonna, I think, have a little something, maybe even a party. We'll see. And you're all invited.
All right.
I am going on vacation for the next week. Who's filling in? It's Devendra Hardawar, and Gadget's Devendra Hardawar is going to fill in. Great show next week. He does a wonderful job.
Where are you going, Leo? You always go fun places.
Just today, this time, just Cabo, just down to Mexico.
Just
San
Cabo.
Lucas, just Cabo. Go down and see
nice.
Sammy at Cabo Wabo, and it'll be it's just.
Have you been to Todos Santos?
I hear Todos Santos is great. My son goes there a lot, and he loves it. So he's got some recommendations. You've been?
Yeah, yes, I love it. It's really close to Cabo.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. We actually wanted to stay.
Minutes.
We wanted to stay in Todos Santos, but I couldn't find anything. But so we're in one of those big resorts in Cabo. But we'll be driving down. Yeah. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Robbie.
Thanks, Leo.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks to Devendra for next week. I'll see you in 2. But now it is my sad duty to say, as I have for the last 19 years, another twit is in the can. See you next time.
Amazing.